In the first chapter, we can see that our protagonist is pointing his gun into a holographic AI, and that AI is asking if he's a hunter. A few days ago in the slum, monsters from the wastelands start attacking in the slum. One of the people running is our protagonist Akira, a boy who lives in a slum. He wanted to find a weapon. Any weapon will do. Suddenly he heard gunfire nearby, a man firing his pistol at people to be a bait, robbed, stepped on, and looked down upon. That's normal in a place like this. For Akira, his determination didn't waver and continued to run, trying to find a weapon he can use. Finally, he found a pistol on the ground. He immediately grabbed the opportunity, and amazed by the gun in his hand. But it was a curse in disguise. One of the monsters are looking at him like a prey he have to hunt. Immediately the monster went for a bite. Akira immediately blocked with his hand. Although it hurts, he used this opportunity to counterattack. He aims for the monster's mouth and fire his gun. When he thought he did it, someone fired at the monster's head. It's a hunter. Instead of helping him, he acted rudely and told Akira to not touch the monster's corpse. He ordered Akira to drop the gun and run, but instead Akira took the gun and run away. For him, he can be a hunter too and rise to the top. The place he is in is called Kugamayama City, a place where rich people live within the walls, shielded from the danger of the wasteland. While the rich people sit comfortably, the poor like him live in the slum town, which is just right next to the wasteland. Either you're lucky to survive or die there. The only choice they have is to earn money by being a hunter. If you manage your way through the wasteland and if by any chance come across relics, you can sell it for plenty of money for you to live within the walls. While trying to catch his breath, he arrived to a place with old world relics, the ancient ruins of Kazushihara City, which means the broken fields. The art style is so good, I don't regret a thing making recap for this kind of art style. Back to our story. Akira made his way to the ancient ruin. He also had his hunter's ID. This is the day he will rise. But a hero always has problems for them to rise to the top. A man grabbed his hand. Akira immediately hold his pistol, but he's already surrounded with guns pointed in his head. They're bandits, failed hunters probably. Then they start beating him up. The piece of paper he had was actually just a piece of paper the office gave to everyone who walks in. They continued to beat him and mock him for wanting to be a hunter, with his nose bleeding. Instead of panicking or acting like a little girl, he glared at them and corrected them with his real name. I guess mama didn't raise no bitch, huh? Sato could learn a thing from him. They continued to mock him. He can't even read and write because the name in his ticket is Ahira, and not Akira. Then they point their guns at him and told him to hand everything over. Suddenly Akira noticed something, a faint glow, and a holographic woman asking if he's a hunter. The art style is so damn good. The woman asked as he can see her. Sato immediately point his pistol towards her. The bandits can't seems to see her. The woman continued to walk towards him. Akira shouted at him to stop. The bandits speculated that he's seeing a ghost from the old world. To Akira's shock, the woman went through his hand. She warned him to run towards the nearby building if he don't want to die. Akira can't process what's going on and the woman start counting down. She looked down on him and told that he's too late, then disappeared. Akira sprinted to the nearby building with all his might. Suddenly he felt it on his back. The impact of the massive explosion caused him to roll down, barely surviving. The AI earlier came back and told him that he passed. She introduced herself as Alpha. After introducing herself, she told him to run towards the stairs. With no choice, he can only follow her. In the rooftop while panting, he asked Alpha what's going on. She agreed and teased him for his name Ahira. She explained that he was about to get killed by a weapon dog and she only gave him the support he needs. He's confused what she meant by weapon dogs. Alpha told him to look down. Down there are weapon dogs, monsters that are designed to protect the old world. The guns in their back is caused by nanomachines in their stomach to manufacture weapons and ammo for them. Akira asked what is she. She explained that she's augmented reality. Akira asked what's an augmented reality. I'll explain it with my simpler words for you guys. Augmented reality is like virtual reality, but with a key difference. While VR creates a completely virtual world, AR adds digital elements to the real world. Get it? With that in mind, Alpha asked if Akira is a hunter. He confirmed this. Alpha closed in and requested him for his help. There's a ruin she wants to conquer. Akira asked for more information, but he's too weak to conquer the ruin. That's why for advanced payment Alpha will provide him support he needs to make it there. And if he conquer it, she'll reward him with a fortune of old relics. Akira excited as he is asked if it's true. Alpha confirmed this. But then suddenly, Akira's excited face vanished. Although he is thankful for saving him earlier, but his answer is no. Alpha eyes changed. Akira explained. He wanted to become a hunter because he was tricked with empty promises. Stepped on, he lost everything. That's why he wants people to not look down at him ever again. Alpha told him that this is only a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and with the monsters below he'll be dead in no time. But Akira already made up his mind when coming to the ruin. If he's dead it only means that he's out of luck. He walks away. To Alpha this made her more interested in him. That's why he offers him something. She proposed that she'll help him for the time period, and they'll make their contract later on if he decided to trust him. It's a good deal. With her support he won't have to worry about dying. He agreed, but if he got even a little suspicious he's out. She agreed and made him promise one thing, and that is to always follow her instructions. Otherwise he'll die. Now that the deal is sealed, he first need to escape, but to do that he need to slip past the weapon dogs. Doing that is easy because they are predictable. With Alpha's analysis, Akira can dodge their attacks. Alpha led him downstairs, avoiding the weapon dogs. He had a clear view of the weapon dogs, now that they are downstairs. Alpha want Akira to run through them and don't look back. He had no choice but to follow her instructions, and start running as fast as he can with the weapon dogs just behind him. If you ever experienced being chased by a dog, just imagine his adrenaline running to a big dog with weapons in their back. When he thought that he's gonna die, Alpha showed herself and acted as a bait to distract them. She dodged their bullets like she's dancing, causing a massive destructions within. With their constant firing, their ammo runs out. Then suddenly, another explosion happened. I guess Japan likes explosions now. There appeared a giant weapon dog, killing his own kind. He approached them with his menacing eyes. A gigantic monster appeared. Akira asked Alpha what's going on while running. Alpha told him that he will now give him more precise information. If he hesitate just a little, he'll die. She reassured that she won't let him die, and so she begins her instructions, giving him detailed instructions. She told him to ready his gun, but what could a pistol do in the size of a monster like that? Even so, he continues to follow her instructions, running and rolling down. Finally, when the countdown hits 1, he looked back and point his pistol to the monster's eye. Immediately he fired non-stop, using all of his bullets. He fell down, so were the monster. The impact caused the ground to shake like an earthquake. He can't believe his eyes. He actually killed the giant monster with only a pistol. Alpha proudly boasts herself that he only managed to take it down because of her. She then talks very fast. With her support, does he trust her now? Akira, who's tired from the battle, thank her. Alpha took this chance to give him another support if he agrees to her terms. Akira hides inside one of the abandoned buildings. When Alpha confirmed that the surroundings are safe now, she told him that he could come out now. Akira looks at Alpha, an augmented reality, a ghost of the old world. He thought about her proposal earlier. Can he really work with an AI like her? Alpha asked him if he wanted to head back or keep on searching, and he answered that he'd keep searching. He won't go back without a relic. Alpha asked if that's what he wants. They have to go to a place much more dangerous than where they are now. A place that's more dangerous with those weapon dogs. Would that be hell? Akira got scared, but he still proceeded to go. That's the determination, my boy. They went deeper into the ruins, and Alpha told him to take cover. He followed, thinking there's an enemy, but when he looked around, there's nothing. He continued to follow her command, crawling and running around. Then he noticed that they just went back. After sliding himself between a tight wall, Alpha told him to do it and go back there again. Because of this, Akira became more suspicious of her, and so he confronted her. If he will just go back, why did she even tell him to go there to begin with? She explained that because of the danger, they have to change paths, but without any sound. Is there really a danger there? With his curiosity taking over, he took a peek around, and there was nothing there. Alpha shouted for him to head back immediately. A strange electricity appeared. Then a large robot came out of nowhere, looking at him. Akira looks at the robot in shock, and the robot immediately fires missiles at him, destroying the whole place. The explosion knocked him back and caused a large pit below. When the robot didn't detect anyone, he again camouflaged himself. Below the pit where the robot's missile was made is where Akira is. Hit on his stomach, he can only hold his wound in pain. Alpha appeared. Without her hacking the missile guidance system, he's probably dead by now. It's a miracle he's still alive. The area is dangerous because of patrolling automatons with high-tech camouflage. If he's dissatisfied with her directions, why didn't he say so? Alpha asked. Akira apologized to her sincerely. The wounds look bad, and they need to treat them as early as possible. It's reasonable for Akira to not trust Alpha immediately because he just met her, but if he dies, it would also be bad for Alpha. That's why she's doing her best to keep him alive. She asked him to at least believe those words. Disappointed in himself, he told himself that there's no way he can be a hunter. But Alpha reassured him that, as long as he can find his resolve and will to enter the contract, she will take care of the rest. Resolve, and will, he can never move to the top if he doesn't have those. With his wounds still hurting, he made up his mind. He will take care of his will and resolve. With his determination, Alpha instructed him to head deeper into the ruins. They even walked through dozens of automatons. Finally, they found what Alpha's been looking for. It's the old world's medicines. She told him to swallow 10 of them and put one directly into his wounds, because nanomachines heal faster when put directly into the wound than orally. After putting it in, a sharp pain surged into his wounds, making him scream in pain. Because of this, it made him faint through the pain. The moment he woke up, Alpha greeted him, but immediately he pointed his pistol towards her, panting heavily. When he realized that it was Alpha, he apologized. He was just surprised, because normally when he wakes up with someone next to him, it's usually thieves. So he acted based on muscle memories. Alpha understood this. He changed the topic and asked him about his wounds. He noticed that his wound doesn't hurt anymore. The wound earlier also healed. The old world's medicines sure are amazing, he praised. Alpha continued to guide her to borrow some relics. They didn't take much because they still had to go back. They took some medicines, a knife, and some other things. With that, they call it a day and head home. Inside the bustling market of the slum, even though there are many people, they can't see Alpha, even with her flashy outfit. No one can hear her either. That's why it looks like Akira is just talking to himself. Then they arrived on the streets. It was a scene where the kids in the slum stared at him with curiosity and cautiousness. Inside the relic exchange, they made their way inside to exchange their relics. To Akira's shock, all of those relics he got only cost 300 orum. He can't even buy a meal with that amount. The person at the desk told him that if he had a problem with it, he should just do business elsewhere. They laugh and mock him, and because of this, he holds his pistol. But everyone inside was readying their guns as well. Akira glared at him, but Alpha told him to stop. The clerk explained that a hunter with no reputation or history can only be paid that much on their first exchange. He should be grateful that they are willing to pay that much for his pre-appraisal relics that he's sure will turn into junk. They will pay the total balance after his next exchange, and he's also sure that he won't come back. Akira told him that he would, and with his determined eyes, he would. The clerk smiled and told them to be careful. In the slum ration center, the worker there talk about the food being made from monsters' meat, and that food that they are just talking about to be disgusting, is being eaten by Akira. Alpha warned her about the questionable substance in the food, but Akira already know this and he have no choice but to eat because he's broke. Since he's broke, Alpha wanted them to gather more relics since he still have her trial period to help him. In the Kuzuhara town ruins, Akira stared at Alpha's new dress and asked why she changed. She asked if there's a dress he preferred, and he told him that it was the dress she wore when they first meet. She think about it first, then changed her clothes. More like remove her clothes and got naked. Akira embarrassed and immediately told her to put some clothes on. Akira asked why she wears a dress. She explained that some old world's facilities that still have AR data, so she hijacked those systems to broadcast her visual data over a wide place. That's why anyone who has an equipment to see AR data can see her easily. That's why she wore a dress to get reaction of those people. Akira immediately get what she said. It means that someone with equipment that can see her is nearby. Alpha confirmed this, and warned her to not turn around no matter what, because they are watching them as they speak. They're two men, well-equipped hunters. They've been following him while keeping their distance. Akira got nervous when he heard this. He thought that it would just be a misunderstanding. Who even would go after him? Either they saw him exchanging his relics earlier, or someone told them. Either way, they are after his relics. If he don't treat them as enemies he'll die. He can only curse. To think that he would deal with hunters too. Inside the building, he asked if how will he get away, but Alpha said that he won't, because he will fight them. But Akira worries because they are inexperienced hunters and fully equipped, but Alpha reassured him that he can do it with her support. That's why he should form a contract with her. Akira thinks about it and said that he'll think about it after they're done, although he's stubborn. Alpha will show him how amazing her support. Akira is still worried. Again Alpha reassured him. If he can't even overcome something like this, how could he rise on top? Alpha told him to prepare himself and prepare his willpower and resolve, because that's the only thing he needs to manage. Although Akira hesitated, but he made up his mind. He's in charge of willpower and determination after all, and Alpha will in charge of the rest, and so they proceed with her plan. Alpha will show him how amazing her support is. The hunters discussed their plan. A guy named Haya confirmed that he saw Akira with a girl in a dress with the use of his eye parts that can see information about the old world. She got some nerves showing herself, a girl who only selects people to see her. She's the ghost of the old world. Haya got scared from this. After all, she's the rumored tempting specter who lured hunters into the ruins. But his teammate reassured him that she's just a AR guidance system. And besides, he already figured out the trick. He assumed that Akira used Alpha to guide him through the relics, and that ghost story is just made up from a nobody hunter to steal from him. With their own speculations, the big guy is confident that he can take them down and force them to lead him to where the relics are. But Kamimo, the guy in a weird hairstyle, is rather cautious. He wants Haya to go there first and reason the fact that he can see then Alpha. Kamimo overthinks that it might be a trap, but he can only hope that it's not. Haya made his way inside the building. Inside he immediately saw Alpha. He reported this to Kamimo, and Kamimo warned him that the kid is probably nearby. Alpha starts walking, leading him to a trap. Haya praised her nice body. Meanwhile Akira is hiding closely, panting nervously. He only has 3 bullets left. He assured himself that he can do this if he follows Alpha's plan. Haya walked just inches away from Akira. Akira crouched. But Haya seems to notice something, but he got distracted when Alpha turned around. Her beautiful face captured his attention. She's like an angel in disguise. Like us, Haya has the same reaction. Akira clenched his pistol waiting for Alpha's signal. Haya got close to her, having his own desire. He tried to touch her but his hand just went through her. Akira glared at him. In anger he holds his pistol tighter, and slid as he fired at Haya, but Haya blocked it with his armor and even fired back. Immediately, Akira run, and escaped from his grasp. Kamimo asked what happened. After explaining, Kamimo was right about the trap, and wasn't exaggerating. But this gave them something in return. This only made speculation accurate. They thought that Akira gave her simple instructions to make a trap. Now that they know that she can follow instructions, and she's still standing nearby, they can use this to their advantage to pinpoint his location. Akira got shot and immediately swallowed some old world's medicines to treat his wounds. Alpha asked why he didn't listen to her instructions. He apologized and answered that he thought he can do it. Akira then poured the powder of the old world's medicine on his wound. Although it hurts like crazy, he has to stay quiet for their next plan. Alpha led the hunter to Akira for their next plan. Although it's a bit dangerous, Akira still agrees after all resolve is the part of his job. Alpha also reassured him that this time they can kill him. Alpha led him to a corner, and pointed inside a room. The hunter was cautious at first, but when he saw the blood stains on the ground this made him more sure that he's inside. And so he readied his gun and start firing inside, but there's no one there. And so he blamed Alpha, but when he looks at her there's a pistol passing through her breast. Without hesitation, he fired 3 bullets, killing him on the spot. Haya couldn't believe it. How could he get shot, he wondered. Then Akira went through Alpha's body. It was a trap all along. He was really the tempting specter. Akira, finishing him with a bullet in his head. 1 down, and 1 more to go. Kamimo can't help but worry about what happened to Haya, as he's not answering any of his questions. Akira can't believe that he actually took down a hunter. Alpha told him to take his equipment and throw his body on the window. Although Akira is a bit unsure, he followed the instructions, dragging the corpse near the window. Kamimo heard gunshots, so he's sure that a fight broke out. But Haya is not replying to him either. Is it possible that a loud thud came from behind him, and there his comrade Haya's corpse lay low. He took this as a provocation and got angry for looking down upon. After dropping Haya's body, Alpha told Akira to bring out the knife relic they decided not to sell. Akira took it out, and now they plan to kill the other one. To do that, he instructed Akira to shoot the sticking out part of the handle. But Akira hesitated because it's still a relic. He could sell it for money. Alpha has other plans, but those would risk his life more. And so, he can only agree and shoot it. Kamimo wasn't joking around. Unlike Haya, he's smart and a cautious man. He noticed something on his radar. It's as if luck struck him this time. Not only did he loot Haya, but he also took his tablet, which is his mistake. Kamimo can use this to his advantage to tell where he is, and so he immediately dashes to where he is. But Haya's table was on the ground when he found it. Did they know all along and set up a trap? But with his position, there's no way he can be shot. But a small line went through his stomach. It was so wide that it could go for 5 meters. The line cut through him without his knowledge. Bro got cut in half, like Gojo. Was he a fan of Gojo? Perhaps. Not only him, but the surroundings were also cut in half. Even Akira was surprised by the power he held. The knife turned into dust in only 1 use, which made him kill the last hunter. Akira asked what the knife was, and Alpha told him that it was just an ordinary relic. But since he destroyed the safety device, he can use its full power once. Akira praises the power of the old world. For powerful relics to scatter around, it's absurd. Alpha told him that his thinking is right. That's why it's also possible to see a weapon that can slice through walls. He should be careful. Alpha told Akira to not forget that he only survived because of his support, and Akira thanked her for it. With that, they went ahead to gather more relics before returning to the city. Meanwhile, rumors spread about a huge monster's corpse that was found nearby. But for a monster that big, it can only be found deep within the ruins. People think that someone intentionally lured out the monsters to wipe out a group of hunters. But there's no way that's true. Luring out a monster like that would only get them killed. But they laugh it off. Even if they're ghosts, as long as they are useful, they are fine with it. But speaking of ghosts, a ghost was seen in the area, named Beguiling Ghost. They made their way back to the city, and inside the relic exchange, Akira made it back as promised. He inspected his relics, and they were not as good as the last time. He asked what he meant by that. Since they finished appraising his last relics, they paid him full with the last and today's relics, which is a total of 200,000 orum. Akira got nervous, as this is the first time he's seen a large sum of money like that. The clerk advised him to use it wisely and shoot him away. Akira glanced left and right, nervous with the large amount of money he had. Alpha calmed him down and told him that it's just spare money. But for Akira, that shit's a lot of money, but compared to him risking his life, that amount won't be enough. That's why he should take it easy. Since he's tired from earlier, Alpha recommends that he take an inn, and he doesn't have to worry about managing the money since she will also support him for that. I wish I also had someone who could advise me on managing money, and for you, of course, I know you can't earn. They made it inside the hotel. It was so huge that Akira is not used to it. Alpha told him that he should get used to this because he now has the money to do so and he can't just sleep on the back alley now. But still, he can't get used to it. $20,000 per night is crazy. He couldn't even earn that much money in the past. Alpha explained that the room is worth the price. She recommended taking a bath, or does she want non-combat support? But the bath made him more excited, and he started running towards it. His earlier dilemma got immediately washed over because the room has a bath. Alpha, who's next to him, asked how the bath was, and Akira asked why she was naked. She explained that she can't go in the bath with clothes, but instead of getting embarrassed, he just found it amazing that even though she's AR, she still can go into the bath. This made her a bit down for him to not care about her being naked. Alpha advised him to sleep on the bed if he's sleepy. He followed her advice. Then he stopped and decided that he would accept her request to explore a certain ruin. Basically, he trusts her now, but with his current state, he's too weak to do it now. That's why he asked her to help him get stronger. With that, she told him that he had to get equipment first. He understands and gets out. Alpha seems to be pleased with what's happening. The sun rises, creating a beautiful morning. Akira was sleeping peacefully when Alpha woke him up, but he got startled and asked where he was. Alpha calmed him down and told him that he's in the hotel, She told him that they'll buy new equipment after he finishes his breakfast. Lower District Hunter's specialty shop Cartridge Freak, a shop they went through. The manager, Shizuka, greeted them. Akira told her that he wants an AR rifle maintenance toolset, and wants to sell the rifle he looted from the hunters yesterday. Shizuka recommended that the rifle can still be used with a little maintenance, but Alpha advised him to buy a new one since he'll use it for a long time. With that in mind, she bought a new AR rifle for 100,000 orum. AR rifle is favorited by hunters since it's cheap, easy to maintain, and rarely breaks down. Then she brings out a suit, a defensive cloth that can still be used with a little bit of adjustment. She gave it to him for free, but only if she became a regular in her shop. Akira thanked her and agreed. Shizuka hoped that he'd live long enough to become a regular. Back at the hotel, their next plan is to practice how to shoot. While checking his gun, he remembered what she said in the bath yesterday. Although he trusts her, he knows nothing about Alpha. She said when he got wounded that she would do her best to keep him alive. For Akira, that's not a lie. She wants to conquer the ruin she wants, no matter what. With that in mind, if Alpha were to meet a better hunter than him, he'll dump him. That's why he should get stronger and rise as a hunter. Alpha called Akira. She has to tell him the most important part of their contract. When Akira looked behind him, Alpha's atmosphere changed. Her eyes and her talking completely changed. It's as if she's an AI. I ain't reading all that. But I'll use a bit of time to let this slide. Okay, that should be enough. Basically, it's about Alpha giving a high-tech support to subject Akira and want to execute all of Alpha's functions without his prior consent or explanation because it will take 120 years for him to understand orally. Alpha asked if she could perform diverse operations on him without prior consent or a proper explanation. To provide more support. Akira was shocked by this but had already made up his mind. He said yes without hesitation. Alpha's eyes closed, and he fell down, as if her AI self earlier got cut off. Alpha thanked her, reassured him that he was in good hands, and asked Akira to go near her. Though he doesn't know what she said earlier, since he agreed to the deal, he'll trust her. With their contract being formed, she can now talk to him using telepathy. With this, they can now talk using their thoughts. With this, they now have quick and accurate communication while in combat. Next, if firing support, Alpha asked Akira to aim at the pebble 100 meters away. When he aimed, what seemed to be a scope appeared in his sight. With him focusing his eyes on the pebble, he can actually zoom in, and when the outline turns red, it means that the target is locked on. Meanwhile, the blue one can predict the bullet's trajectory. If he aligns it with his target, he'll likely hit it. He fired his rifle, but got knocked down by the recoil, missing his target. Monsters don't sit still and move. That's why he should aim carefully. Alpha asked Akira if Shizuka was his type. She said that he only bought gear from her. But to Alpha, there's more to it. Akira just agreed to this because it seems like he doesn't really care much. Now that he understands the new features, Alpha tells him about the contract. Alpha wants Akira to conquer a ruin for her and pay him with relics. And as for the advanced payment, she'll support him to get stronger. Alpha asked if he had questions about the contract or wanted to add anything, but he just told her to tell him what he needed to know if he needed it. And so Alpha explained her plan, including his training. They'll gather relics once a week, and he'll spend most of his time training and studying. She'll give him her support until the contract is done. That's why Akira should do her best too. While learning how to write, Akira noticed his hunter's ID, which had the wrong name on it. He laughed it off because he can now read his name. On their training grounds, Akira is shooting pebbles as usual. Now that he's not an amateur anymore, they can move on to the next stage. Suddenly, a weapon dog appeared. Akira immediately prepared himself. The weapon dog attacked, and he aimed. When he was about to fire, he panicked and fired randomly, causing his body to get slashed. When he thought it was all over, the weapon dog disappeared. It was just an AR like Alpha, but near him is also an image of himself, who's dead from the attack earlier. This is an example Alpha made for Akira. If he panics, he'll end up like that. With Alpha's guidance, although he died countless times, he didn't give up and learned from his mistakes. While panting, Alpha told him that the training is over because someone is coming towards them. Akira asked two female hunters if they'd be after him again, but Alpha said that they're just passing through. What they are in is a route for Kuzuhara ruins after all. But just in case, they should head into the ruins. In the car from earlier, two women are inside, driving towards the Kuzuhara ruins. Elena is the name of the woman driving, while Sarah is the one next to her. Elena worries about Sarah's life support running low, but for Sarah, the ruin they are going to is safe, so she doesn't need to worry. Elena made up her mind that she would sell her gear to refill Sarah's life support, but Sarah argued that if they didn't have her scanners, how could they make money? That's why they can only hope that the rumors are true inside the Kuzuhara ruin. They have to move again because of hunters. Akira asked why there are so many hunters in the ruin. It's because of the certain rumor that a kid from a slum brought back valuable relics, and that kid is none other than Akira. Though the area is already cleared, if a kid from a slum can find relics in the area, it wouldn't hurt to take a second look. A colorless fog is about to come, and hunters are leaving because they can't find anything and have given up. The rumors might not be true, however, the two women from earlier are still around. They're capable hunters that can see him anytime now, but they might get in trouble. Akira asked why, and Alpha answered that it's because the colorless fog is coming closer. Akira asked what she meant by colorless fog. In the distance, there's a light mist that is caused by the colorless fog. When it becomes thick, it can block wireless communication, sound, and even smell. It causes monsters to have a hard time, not only for monsters but also for hunters, because firearms lose power, range and accuracy. You can even see the bullets if the fog is dense enough. The worst case scenario is that Alpha's scanning takes a huge hit that will put Akira in danger. And if that happens, he's good as dead. That's why he shouldn't forget about that fog. Akira saw something in the distance using his binoculars. It's a big monster stirred up by the hunters and is heading towards the two women. But Akira didn't mind this and just said that they should get away while they still could. Alpha said that it's a good idea. The fog becomes more dense and closer, and there's also a loud roar they hear. That's why they need to go now, because Elena can't scan far with the fog. But Sarah reassured her and told her that they just needed to be more careful. Then gunfire was heard, and they immediately took cover. Using Elena's scan, she detects 8 hunters and a monster heading in their way, but the hunters seem to not know what they're doing. Because of that, Sarah had no choice but to take it out for them. She took out a heavy firearm and shot the monster directly in the head. The hunters run past them, but they seem to drop something. It was a grenade, and Sarah immediately hugged Elena. The grenade caused a large explosion, and the smoke cleared out. But Sarah and Elena got knocked down by the explosion. The hunters are pleased with this. Inside a room on a large bed, we can see Sarah as a child with an inhaler. Elena holds Sarah's hand, reassuring her that the Eastern treatment can heal her with nanomachines. Inside the hospital room, Elena visits Sarah, who's already much better compared last time thanks to the Eastern treatment. Elena stared at Sarah's chest, which are much more larger compared to last. Sarah said that since they need nanomachine storage, they modified her body for external use. But Elena teased her for it. Back to the present. The hunters gets near them with their guns pointed at them. Elena remembered what happened when the grenade explodes and shouted Sarah's name. With Sarah's quick reaction time, she immediately pulled out her guns and started firing at them. She immediately took cover. The explosion earlier used up many of her nanomachines, making it hard for her. When she was looking for Elena, the hunters took her as a hostage. But Elena shouted that she shoot and forget about her. The hunters taunted her with her friend's life, although she can kill them all, but they'll kill Elena first. One of the hunters proposed that they give them their gears for exchange for their lives, but another hunter had enough of the chit-chat and pressed the gun in Elena's head. This guy wasn't joking around. This is the type of villain I want, not someone who keeps yapping. Because of this, Sarah has no choice but to do what they want. She dropped her weapons and walked towards them, but she has a plan. If she gets close enough, she can take them barehanded. The hunter told her to take off her power suit, because he thought it's the reason why they survived the grenade from earlier. But it looks like that wasn't the case. Instead of her suit, it was her body that is strong enough to protect them. And so she took it off to get them off guard, but they laugh at her for being flat. But Elena wasn't having it and shouted at them in anger, but she got smacked with a pistol. Now that they took it off, the hunter told her to walk slowly towards him. She tightened her resolve to go with the plan. However, she got shot on the legs before she could even get near. Bubaha was the name of the one who shot her. Their leader asked why he did it. He explained that it's because she have nanomachine her body that is par with a power suit. Think of it like her body is pair with modern tank durability. Elena break through the hands of the hunters, and went to her friend. The hunters point their rifles at them. Her injuries caused the used up of all the nanomachines in her body. While holding her, she apologized for screwing up. The fog got denser. They were told to keep their playtime short. While laughing at them, then all of a sudden the one who shot Sarah got shot in the head. The fire continues, killing one after another. Elena saw the opportunity and grabbed a rifle on the ground, and fired at the hunters. The hunters took cover, so were Sarah and Elena. They wonder who were sniping those hunters. If he's a villain I wanted, this is the hero I want. He's damn cool, compared to Sato. While they all took cover, Akira asked Alpha how many are left. That's a cool pose. Alpha answered that there are only 5 left. Akira asked Alpha how many are left. She answered that there are only 5 more to go. He can't stay in one place so that his enemies can't figure out his location. And with the help of the colorless fog, they'll have a hard time figuring his position. And Alpha told him that they will never find out his location if he follows her directions. It's as if they are fighting blindfolded. With the help of Alpha's scope support, he aimed at their leader and shot him dead. His comrades can only scream in fear that he might nay next. Back to Akira. Alpha told him that if they found out their location he's dead. That's why he should follow her directions, so that he can kill them all, even if they're veteran hunters. The gunfire continued. Sarah and Elena hides inside the building. Meanwhile, Akira asked Alpha what's his next position, but she didn't said anything, and so, Akira asked what's wrong as she's been acting like that for a while now, although she's not bothered with him helping those 2 women, but, since he agreed to do the job for Alpha, he can't just recklessly save those 2 strangers on a mere pity. After all, if he dies she'll be in trouble too. Akira get it. Her support is just an advanced payment. If he dies it's her lose, it's like losing a gamble. Alpha told him that they should finish it before the fog clears out. After firing the last shot, he finished the last one. Akira, feeling guilty for what he did, apologized to Alpha. Alpha asked why did he choose to save them and change his mind. He reasoned that if he leave those hunters like that, there are a chance they will go after him. That's why he wants to kill them before they could cause him some trouble. And for him, since he's out of luck, helping them might give him more luck. Alpha just accept his reason, but she knew all along. When the monster were attacking them, he didn't care. But when she mentioned those men his attitude changed. Killing them was part of his plan, he just needed a reason to justify his actions. He saved those women to kill those men. He has a negative emotions. Alpha needs to make sure that those won't go towards her. The gunfire stopped. Elena asked Sarah how's her injuries. Although the nanomachines closed her wounds, but she can't walk. Because of this, she run. Alpha noticed Akira that she's running towards him. He can't lose her even if he run. And she's already on the other side of the wall. Akira had an idea and start writing on a piece of paper. He wrote, "Stay away, hardly," but he's still learning. He wrap it on a piece of bullet and throw it on the other side of the wall. Elena saw this and took the piece of paper. She found the "stay away" written on the paper and the piece of bullet. It has a double meaning. It's either just a wait or a warning. But anyway, she still thanked him for saving them, and asked if he could help her friend since she can't move. Akira tossed something. It was a medicines. After throwing that, Akira and Alpha left. After taking the medicine, Sarah can now stand on her own. But the medicines are high-end medicines. Who would give those away to strangers? Although they don't know who helped them, she promised herself that she will repay him someday. A few days later in the Kugamayama city, it's now his 10th time to bring a relic. Since he misspelled his name, it's now his chance to correct it. The clerk gave him a card and a map for him to follow. If he show the card to the staff there, he'll have some paperwork to fill up. The clerk was impressed that he made it this far, and told him to take care. The map leads to Kugama Building, an economic waypoint between inner and outer city. Not only that, but also one of the hunter's office. The hunters inside there are far different from others. You can say that they are the elites. They survived and explored deadly ruins. This gained them more strength and experiences compared to others. Akira made his way to the desk and gave the card to the clerk there. The person there asked if he's Akira. Akira confirmed this and told her that he got his name misspelled. Now that she know this, she congratulated Akira for getting promoted to rank 10. It means that he's now a real hunter. Because of his constant bringing relics, he got promoted. The higher he gets, the more privilege he can have, him such as access to forbidden gears and gain highly classified information. Since he's correcting his name, the clerk asked him to tell his correct name. The clerk also told him that the information he will provide will be permanent. His name, for example, is an important piece of information to be identified in the hunter's office or anyone working with him. With that in mind, would he register his name as simply Akira? He's been all alone since he was born. No family, no friends to rely on. The only thing he have is the name Akira, where no one even calls him correctly. However, there is one. It was Alpha who called his name correctly and recognized him by it. And so he registered his name only Akira. After filling the requirements, he's done. Alpha asked him how it feels to be rank 10 hunter, and she keeps bragging that it was only possible because of her. His hunter's ID is the first step for him to get recognized and prove himself as a human and a hunter. He bought a digital terminal that is important for hunting. Alpha also rewrite the software to use it more efficient and useful. Termal is worth the money because it's important. Termal is used for hunters to market information about monsters and ruins. You can even download maps of the ruins. But Akira can't comprehend it. Also, he asked Alpha to stop. Akira asked if it's even has a use when things are going smoothly for them just the way it is. But Alpha told him that since his shooting has improved, he'll increase the training. As such, he will navigate to the ruins without Alpha's help. Akira asked if that's safe. Alpha said no. That's why they need training. Outside the Kuzuhara town ruins, he scout ahead using his binoculars. He had walked past that path countless times, but for him it's different without Alpha. After checking his terminal, he picked the safest route he could find. It's been an hour and he have gotten nowhere. If he had missed even a single monster, his life is over. Because of Alpha spoiling him, he forget how dangerous the ruins are. In the slum, Akira tiredly made it back safely. Scouting will become much more easier if had more proper gear. He realized how much he got spoiled by Alpha. He needs to stand on his own feet without any help from his mommy. Akira noticed that the relics are much bigger compared last time. Alpha said that since he's a real hunter now, she increased it a bit. Akira smiled, saying that his hard work paid off. Then suddenly, Alpha detected something. She warned Akira that they're surrounded. Akira grit his teeth and moved. Dozens of men with guns run after him trying to surround him. Given their number, they're probably one of the slum gang. The rumors of him bringing back relics must have caught their attention. Basically, he's a treasure walking around. They need to teach them a lesson so that they'll learn that he's not someone who can pick on a fight. And so, Akira need to take one, the armed one, first. He can win this only by listening to Alpha. It's funny that since he become a hunter he have killed humans more than monsters, but they want to kill him for their own benefits, so it doesn't change. One by one he killed them, and in headshot on top of that. His accuracy sure is getting better. Those gang's members wasn't expecting him to be strong. The shock got them and started to panic. A mysterious little girl saw the chaotic scene. The members of the gang started running. The little girl want to follow them, but the one she wants to follow got hit in the head. As she turned into the corner, Akira was already waiting for her, pointing his rifle. Akira is aiming at her, keeping his rifle ready. The girl can't even process her thoughts properly. It all happened all of a sudden. But Alpha told him to not waste his ammo, and told him to move because the reinforcement are coming. But instead, they all got killed. They can only beg for mercy now. Their gang leader even told him that he'll make him the gang boss just to spare his life. Akira pointed his rifle in his head, while glaring at him. The gang's leader name is Cyborg. he threatened Akira that if he killed him he will be targeted. He shouted arrogantly that if Akira don't want to die he should let him live. Akira told him that he don't want to die. Cyborg grinned thinking he has a chance to live, however Akira shot him. He needs to die so that Akira won't die. The blood scattered to the ground. Sometime later, Cyborg's men found his body. If he's dead, what about the gang? But they don't have time to worry about that. They need to leave before they could get killed. They all now acted innocent, and decided to just join up another gang. The girl earlier asked to join with them, but they pushed her away because she'll be a reason to be targeted as she is Cyborg's pet. They left her there with nothing, in a quiet alley. The girl from earlier was sitting there thinking about what happened earlier, because she's from Cyborg's gang nobody wants to help her. With her resolve, she tightened her fist and decided to risk it or die. In the slum street, Alpha told Akira that he will fight virtual weapon dogs today, although he felt that he's improving, but he can't seems to beat the weapon dogs no matter what he do. That's why he asked Alpha if hunters can really take them down, and so Alpha gave him a reference. The 2 women he saved can easily deal with a pack of weapon dogs. He was shocked that they are actually that strong. Alpha reassured him that he can do it too once he had proper gear. That's why he have to focus on his training. Then, Alpha said that he's being followed again. Akira got cautious of this, but Alpha told him not to worry because the girl is only looking for opportunity to strike a conversation. Akira went to her directly and asked what she wants. With her watery eyes and stuttering voice she managed to tell him that she wants to discuss something with him. Alpha told Akira that she was one of the gang's members that attacked him yesterday. After hearing this his eyes changed. Why does someone who wants to kill him want to talk about? He pointed his rifle at her with a menacing glare. The girl shakes in fear, and even wet herself. She gave in and cried her eyes out. Akira freezed when he saw this. He doesn't know what to do. This is all first time for him after all. The people around them also saw this and start gossiping. Because of that he panicked and reassured her that he won't hurt her, but she won't stop crying even if he's calming her down. He has no choice but to drag her with him. Inside the mall bro was exhausted mentally because of what just happened. Inside the shower room, she thinks about what she just did. She screwed up before even starting the negotiations. But she know that he won't kill her on the spot, that's why she'll be okay. But for him to take her to a hotel, she overthinks that they'll do it. But if it'll convince him, she has to do whatever it takes. And so with her resolve on hand, she gets out the shower room and want to talk about earlier. But she saw him just eating and enjoying his meal. He gave her a food making her stomach growl. After eating her fill, she thanked him for what he did and apologized for earlier. They introduced themselves. The girl's name is Cheryl. Akira immediately asked what she want to discuss with. She get to her point and told him that she wants him to be their gang leader, although it was nerve-wracking for her to say it but she did it. However, to her surprise Akira wasn't interested. She reasoned with him about the benefits, but he doesn't want any of it and asked her to leave. Cheryl knew that he is not interested at all, and forcing her reasons will only annoy him. And so, with no choice she offered her body. Akira stared at her from top to bottom, making Cheryl nervous. She looks closely at her and rejected her offer. He thinks that she'll just get on her way in the ruins. She's not even worth it to be his meat shield. Alpha corrected his thinking that she means asexual, but he's even less interested in it. Alpha asked if she's sure about it. After all, she's cute and can become hot when she grows up, and repeatedly said not as hot as her 3 times. Anyways, Akira already has his hand full with Alpha always stripping down. And also, to him it isn't right to take advantage of her when she's down like that. Alpha get it, but she told him that he needs to help her. Akira asked why. Alpha explained and reminded him about his bad luck for some time now. That's why he needs to help her to boost his luck at least. After all, his luck is running low at this point. Doing good deeds won't hurt. And so Alpha recommended to help her as this is a good opportunity for him. He just need to help her a bit. He just need to lend her a hand for luck. Akira thinks about this and has a plan for it. He tossed a coin and catch it with his hand, and he then asked her if it's head or tails. Cheryl was confused, but she still picked a choice. Which is head. Akira took a peek and put it in his pockets making Cheryl curious. Akira repeat what he said that he wasn't interested in joining her gang, but he'll help her out. Only if she will be the boss. Akira suggested that he'll just work with her and don't have to deal with the management. Cheryl doubt if she can pull it off, but with Akira backing her she might do it. She have no future if she refuse. As such she accepted the deal, but she's still curious about the coin toss earlier. She wants to ask him about it, but Akira told her that she can ask him anything but if he told her drop it she should never ask it again. And so, she asked him about the toss coin if she won or not, but Akira told her to not ask. She looked down, still curious. Did she win her gamble or lose? They finished surveying Cyborg's entire territory. Now that he's dead, it's all theirs. Akira asked if other gangs would take over the territory, but Cheryl assured him that since nobody wants needless conflict, they wouldn't. Then, Alpha teased Akira, saying he's on a date. Akira denied it, but Alpha insisted, knowing she would win the argument no matter what. During a date, buying a present is a must, according to Alpha. Akira didn't want any of this, but when Cheryl misunderstood his reluctances glaring at her, he eventually gave in. He asked what to get her, knowing that arguing with Alpha would only make things worse. Akira picked up on the signal Alpha wanted and started looking around for a gift. He came across some guns. Thankfully, he didn't buy one. Who would buy a gun as a present for a first date? Although, if you gave me a gun as a gift, I wouldn't complain. Unable to decide, he asked Alpha for advice again, but she told him he had to think for himself and be considerate. Frustrated, he directly asked Cheryl what she wanted, reasoning that since she needs proof to show others they're close, she should just tell him. But Cheryl said that a gift from Akira himself would mean much more. He reluctantly agreed, saying she shouldn't blame him if she doesn't like it. At this point, he might just give her a gun, but thankfully, Cheryl saved the day by suggesting that jewelry is a sign of closeness. He didn't realize that a gun wasn't the right choice. He picked out some jewelry for her, and she thanked him. Akira told her to be careful on her way home. Around the corner, Cheryl hid and looked at the necklace Akira had given her. She was surprised at how considerate he actually was. She couldn't figure out his intentions and also wondered why he always seemed to be staring into blank spaces. She grew suspicious but decided to brush it off. Alpha asked where Akira was heading next, and he replied that since he was nearby, he'd check something out. Better safe than sorry, he said. In Cyborg's territory, Cheryl looked around and, as expected, the base had been looted. The only significant thing left was Cyborg's throne. She remembered how Cyborg used to sit there to show dominance over his men. If any of Cyborg's remaining men saw her with Akira, they'd definitely confront her. But it seemed she had planned for this in advance and even expected them to come. Approaching Akira was her first gamble, and now this was her second. There was no turning back. If she survived the first, she can survive the second. Cyborg's men burst in, seeing Cheryl sitting on the throne menacingly as she greeted them. As expected, they asked what was going on and why she was with the one who killed Cyborg. She told them she had struck a deal with Akira, and from now on, she was the boss of the gang. They argued with her, questioning what right she had to call herself the boss. Cheryl explained that since Akira killed Cyborg, he could take over the gang as compensation for the attack. But because he was busy as a hunter, he put her in charge. One of them grew more furious, blaming Akira for everything being messed up. But Cheryl didn't care about Cyborg, noting that he had lost to a kid. This only enraged the man further. He stepped toward the throne, saying that even if Akira was strong, she was still on her own. Cheryl kept her composure and continued to mock him. She threatened that she had told Akira about all of them, and if they killed her, Akira would hunt them down. He dismissed this as a bluff, reasoning that Akira wouldn't trouble himself if he had nothing to gain. But then Cheryl showed the necklace Akira had given her and claimed to be his favorite. This made them think twice. With Akira backing her, they had no choice but to retreat. A group of kids then entered the room. Cheryl asked what they wanted, and their leader said they wished to join her gang. She asked if they were willing to follow her, and they said yes, she was their boss now. Cheryl happily accepted them, instructing them to leave for now and return the next night. As she watched them leave through the window, she finally let her guard down. Panting, she admitted how scared she was of what had just happened. Although Akira supported her, he was often absent, so she needed to establish her authority within the gang. At least she had survived, but she was exhausted from the day and collapsed on the floor. Despite feeling like she was going to die, it wasn't nearly as terrifying as when Akira had pointed his gun at her. In the past, she had always been sheltered and had an easy time pleasing people. She even held a decent position in Cyborg's gang until Akira ruined everything. Outside Cyborg's base, dozens of armed men gathered. While one of them hesitated, another, more ambitious man wanted to hand the territory over to another gang. He wasn't going to let some brat take it. The man with an afro warned that if Cheryl was telling the truth, they could be in trouble, but the other guy reassured him it was just a bluff. They made their move, but the arrogant man was quickly killed, along with many of his men. Around the corner, they saw Akira, who warned them to stay away from Cheryl. The remaining man's legs gave out from fear, and he fled like a dog with its tail between its legs. Alpha asked if Akira was sure about letting some of them escape, but he said someone had to spread the word so others would think twice before attacking. This guy is similar to Mickey. Anyway, the rest was now up to Cheryl's luck, and Akira left. The next day, Cheryl was waiting patiently for Akira and greeted him with a bright smile. Akira asked what she needed. She wanted to discuss their plans and hoped he'd come to the base that night. Akira agreed to go if he had the time and left. But Cheryl mentioned the dead bodies around the base and asked if he was responsible. He casually replied that it was normal in the slums, though she was concerned because there were so many. With that, Akira bid her farewell, and Cheryl said, "Take care," while bowing. Cheryl didn't get the answer she wanted, and Akira's lack of reaction to her smile was odd. Is Akira gay or something? She left and began planning her next move. Meanwhile, Akira and Alpha planned to buy more ammo at Shizuka's store, with Alpha teasing Akira about it. In a ruin, I'm not sure which one, an armored car was moving away, fleeing from a horde of monsters. At the Cartridge Freak's store, Alpha told Akira to buy some ammo, and then they would train in the desert. As they were about to enter, they could already hear a conversation inside. When they walked in, Shizuka greeted Akira. He noticed 3 women inside, 2 of whom seemed familiar. Alpha reminded him that they were the ones he had saved before. Alpha commented on their appearance, saying Akira should be glad he saved them. However, Akira felt a bit off about that statement. Anyway, he told Shizuka he was there to buy some ammo. Akira apologized for not buying anything else, but Shizuka reassured him that him coming back alive was what mattered most. Shizuka then took the opportunity to introduce Akira and asked the women to give him some tips as a hunter. They introduced themselves, and Sarah admitted that they had almost died the other day. She advised Akira to be careful, and he assured them he would be. After their brief exchange, they said their goodbyes and left. Akira sighed in relief once they were gone, and Shizuka noticed this, staring at him as he checked the ammo. Akira asked what was up, but to his surprise, Shizuka asked when will he tell her that he was the one who saved Sarah and Elena. He continued to play dumb, but Shizuka assured him she wouldn't tell Elena and Sarah about it. Akira kept up his act, but Shizuka told him that trusting someone is part of a hunter's job, so she could understand his caution. But Akira was still puzzled. How did she know it was him? She explained that the bullets she sold had serial numbers on the casings, which confirmed her suspicion, as she had sold those bullets at that time. The bullet Akira used as a weight to throw the note to Elena had the serial number on it. Cornered, Akira confessed the truth and apologized for keeping it a secret. But to his surprise, Shizuka revealed she had been bluffing all along. He asked about the serial numbers. Though they were real, it wasn't enough evidence to prove her point. She had merely guessed that he was the one who saved them because of his actions earlier and bluffed to confirm it with Akira himself. Shizuka just smiled and promised not to tell the others. However, she advised that if Akira planned to tell them eventually, he shouldn't wait too long. This was particularly because of Sarah, whose rescue meant so much to her that she had fallen in love while recounting the story of her savior. Though her story had changed slightly, she now referred to her savior as he, and filled in the details with her own imagination. She had even concluded that their savior was the son of a big shot, moonlighting as a hunter when he found them. Because of this, telling her the truth now would only complicate things. That's why Akira asked Shizuka to definitely not tell anyone. In the wasteland near Kuzusahara, Akira was undergoing visual training with a weapon dog. The weapon dog charged at him, ready to bite. Akira aimed his rifle at the dog and shot it in the head, making it flip from the force and hit the ground behind him. Although it was just visual training, Akira still had a long way to go. For instance, he needed to reduce the number of visual dead bodies of himself. As he looked at his own dead bodies, though they were just visual images, he still hadn't gotten used to seeing himself dead. With Alpha's detection ability, she sensed something far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. It was a horde of monsters. She immediately instructed Akira to run towards the ruins. Alpha told him that the horde of monsters was attacking a truck in the ruins. But Akira asked why they were heading towards them instead of the other way. Alpha explained that the horde had already noticed him, and even if they ran in the other direction, there would be no place for him to hide. If the horde dealt with the truck, Akira would be their next target. That's why he had to join forces with the truckers and fight to the death. There, he would have a better chance of surviving. A few hours earlier, Darius, the one manning the machine gun, argued that this was why they should have hired more guards. Katsuragi, who was driving, argued back that they couldn't afford it. He added that they couldn't go to any cities with a horde of monsters following them. As a result, they had no choice but to head to the Kuzuhara ruins. The reason was that the deep ruins of Kuzuhara were the most dangerous place nearby, and if they were lucky, they might find a hunter who could wipe out those monsters. They even sent out an emergency signal, hoping someone would hear them. The rest would come down to luck. Back in the present, Akira was running towards the ruins, with the monsters spotting him. Alpha assured him to keep running. She told him to swallow some recovery capsule and move like he did in his training. Akira argued that he always ended up dead in training, but Alpha told him to move like he did the time he didn't die. Akira aimed at the three monsters heading toward him and shot them in the head. Now that they were dead, Akira asked about the truck. Alpha informed him that the truck was cornered in a dead end but was putting up a fight. Meanwhile, at the truck, both Katsuragi and Darius were firing at the monsters with everything they had. Katsuragi even joked that there wouldn't be enough meat and bones for all the monsters while firing the machine gun. As the machine gun was almost empty, Katsuragi asked Darius to hold them off for a minute while he reloaded. But three monsters were already in front of him. Was this the end? But then the monsters were shot, saving him. The other monsters were also killed, and Darius looked up to where the gunfire had come from. In the building, someone was sniping the monsters down, and it was none other than Akira. Akira asked if the monsters would really come after him, considering there were so many of them. Alpha told him they might, which was why he needed to continue providing cover for the truck. They continued firing, and Katsuragi finished reloading the machine gun. It looked like luck was on their side as they kept firing at the monsters. After some time, the area cleared out, and they had finally done it. Akira sighed in relief. Alpha told him he did well, and Akira thanked Alpha for her support. With everything done, Akira went down to say hi so they wouldn't get suspicious. As Akira approached, Darius was surprised to see that their savior was just a kid. But he didn't let Akira's appearance fool him. His aim and judgment were both impressive. Katsuragi approached Akira, thanked him, and asked if he had come because of the emergency signal. But Akira denied it, saying he had only come because the monsters attacked him. Katsuragi laughed, noting that they were both unlucky. Alpha told Akira that they had only gotten caught up in his misfortune. But Akira told Alpha that they should brush it off since they also used them as a decoy, so they shouldn't complain. They introduced themselves, Katsuragi, Darius, and Akira. Katsuragi mentioned that he ran a store in his truck, and they were on their way to Kugamayama City. Since Akira was a hunter, Katsuragi joked that he was now a customer, laughing as he said it. And since fate had brought them together, he offered Akira a discount. He also offered Akira a ride back to the city, saying he needed a break after what had just happened. Akira really wanted to ride in the truck. His childlike excitement showed that he hadn't had the chance to experience things like this in his childhood. It's kind of sad to think about, isn't it? Alpha seemed to notice this and agreed. The truck's engine started, and they got going, running over the countless bodies of monsters they had killed. Katsuragi laughed as they drove, and Akira got the chance to enjoy the ride. Enjoy your life while you still can. That's the message this image conveyed. As they drove off, the horde of corpses was left behind. However, it seems like it's not over yet. A massive horde, much larger than the last time, continued to follow them. Katsuragi admitted that their earlier encounter was the most dangerous trip they've ever experienced. They ventured east, right to the edge of ELGC territory, where they stocked up on supplies to sell in far-off places. The ELGC stands for the Eastern League of Governing Corporations, which consists of companies that run cities like Kageyama. Katsuragi explained that beyond the eastern frontier is an area too dangerous to explore, known as the frontline. Only the best of the best hunters operate there. Those guys use tanks the way most hunters use guns. Akira grew more curious about the tanks. They use tanks because the monsters there are as tall as mountains. Although it's extremely dangerous, hunters continue to go there because it's worth the risk. Katsuragi's idea is to buy high-end gear from the frontlines and sell it to Kageyama City or other cities far from the frontlines to make huge profits. Katsuragi continued, saying that he plans to sell the goods in his truck to expand his business and eventually become a corporation, maybe even one of the Big Five. Akira commented that reaching the Big Five is an ambitious goal, but Katsuragi replied that it's not just a dream. With his deal sealed, he's determined to make it happen. After all, he won the gamble of a lifetime. Laughing, he joked that when he runs his own city, he'll issue new currency named Katsuragi. The haul he has in his truck is his first step toward achieving that dream, which is why he's so grateful for Akira's help. Akira was pleased with this. Having a businessman OU has its own advantages. Katsuragi added that as long as Akira doesn't ask for too much, anything will be fine. As they were happily chatting, Alpha told Akira to look outside the window using his binoculars. Akira immediately complied and began scanning the surroundings. He couldn't believe his eyes. He quickly asked Katsuragi if they had led the horde of monsters to the ruins. Katsuragi was a bit embarrassed to admit it, but he had no choice. However, Akira didn't care about that. What mattered to him was whether the horde they had just wiped out was the entire group. Katsuragi quickly understood what Akira was implying and ordered Darius to use the scanner to its maximum range, 60 degrees at 3 o'clock. There, they spotted a much larger horde than the one they had just defeated. Akira asked how many monsters they could see. Katsuragi couldn't believe they had caught up with them. He was sure they had misdirected them earlier. Darius suggested they head to the city for help, but Katsuragi countered that the city would just think they brought the monsters with them and kill them along with the horde. Their fuel was also running low. Akira suggested they go to the ruins and leave the truck behind to lose the horde. But as soon as Katsuragi heard this, he immediately refused. He reasoned that the smell of the horde they had just wiped out would attract more powerful monsters from deep within the ruins, and if that happened, they'd all die. This made Akira glare at him, although he was looking for an excuse to keep his truck. But Alpha reminded Akira that what Katsuragi said was true. Akira sighed. They had no choice but to fight again. Now that they had to battle, Akira asked Katsuragi if they could use the gear from the front lines. But the guns required special ammo that they didn't have, causing Katsuragi to curse. The horde of monsters would reach them at any moment, so they needed to prepare. They found a spot to make their stand, using terminals to communicate like walkie-talkies. The truck was parked with a large rock behind it. They needed to protect the machine gun, as it was their best chance of survival. Alpha instructed Akira to keep recovery pills in his mouth to swallow every time they wore off. She also told him to open a few of the pills and put the powder in his pocket to rub on his injuries. Akira asked if they could win, but Alpha reassured him that with her support, they had a chance. Akira was still worried, but Alpha reminded him that with her help, they could prevail, as long as he didn't give up. Even with Alpha's guidance, it would mean nothing without his resolve. Akira resolved to win this fight. They all took their positions, ready to face whatever danger awaited them. Katsuragi prepared his machine gun as the monsters closed in. Even though it was dark, Alpha augmented Akira's vision, making it easier for him to see. Since the merchants had taken out most of the ranged monsters during the chase, they needed the horde to get closer to kill the tougher ones more quickly. Akira needed to aim precisely at the monsters' weak points and avoid any mistakes, as they would only make things worse. In 5 seconds, they would start shooting. With Alpha counting down, Akira aimed at the thousands of monsters. When the countdown hit 1, they began firing. Katsuragi took out the tougher monsters while Darius and Akira supported him from the sides. They continued to fire non-stop, killing hundreds. Akira noticed that this horde was much tougher than the one they had wiped out in the ruins earlier, making the machine gun even more crucial. Katsuragi assured him not to worry, as he had plenty of ammo left. He joked that may the last man standing win. As they kept firing, meanwhile in Cheryl's base, the kids who had recently joined demanded to see this, Akira. Though Cheryl remained calm, she was actually worried. She wasn't sure if Akira could come, and she could only stall for a few days. But she wondered what if Akira didn't show up. Back with Akira, the monsters were closing in, getting closer to the top where Akira was stationed. Alpha told Akira to reload, and he complied immediately. His ammo was running low, and he wondered if he could hold out until the end. Alpha warned Akira to be careful, as he hadn't killed the monster yet. Although Alpha's support was perfect, Akira could only do half of it correctly. He looked to his side, where 4 monsters were charging toward him. The recoil from his gun made it feel like it was tearing him apart. One of the monsters leapt at him, and he knew he wouldn't make it. He dodged, sliding his body to the ground, and shot the monster from the side, though it slashed his left shoulder. He immediately thought of using recovery pills, but without him realizing it, the monster wasn't dead yet. Alpha immediately warned him, but it was too late. As he watched the monster go for a bite, his heart began pounding. He remembered the first time he encountered a monster in the slum, and he didn't want to repeat what happened back then. He grabbed his rifle and pointed it inside the monster's mouth. With a grin, as if he was enjoying it, he pulled the trigger, killing the creature. After shooting the monster, he kicked it away with his foot. Exhausted and injured, Alpha told him to use the meds in his pocket. Darius noticed and offered to cover him. Akira took the opportunity to pour the medicine directly onto his wounds. Akira stood up, barely able to walk straight as he staggered. Despite this, he asked Alpha what he needed to do next. Alpha told him to stand firm and keep shooting. Even with his exhausted body and injured arm, Akira stood his ground and shot the monsters to death. As they continued to fight, their ammo dwindled, especially for the machine gun. Despite the hopeless situation, they kept battling. Katsuragi smiled, even though he knew they might not survive. It seemed like it was all over, everything. Even Alpha knew it. Akira smiled, already accepting their fate, but Alpha smiled too. And then she said, "He's saved." Akira was confused by this statement. Behind him, it looked like shooting stars were hitting the ground, followed by explosions. The one firing was Sarah, using her grenade launcher non-stop. Elena was also there, driving their vehicle toward them. Alpha pointed towards the approaching vehicle and told Akira that they were saved. As they looked closer, they realized it was Sarah and Elena. Sarah asked Elena if she was sure this was where their client, who had sent the emergency request, was located. It was much farther than they had expected. Elena reassured her that she was certain, and since they would be covering the cost of the ammo, they could go all out. Akira, Darius, and Katsuragi stared at them with hope. It seemed like luck hadn't abandoned them after all. Elena and Sarah continued to fire at the monsters, wiping them all out. Inside the truck, Akira thanked them for saving their lives. They would have been doomed without their help. But Sarah brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal since they were getting paid, and besides, Akira's group had already taken down most of the monsters, making their job easier. Still, Sarah found it surprising that Akira had gotten caught up in a horde of monsters. What a coincidence, she remarked. Akira joked that maybe he should buy a good luck charm or something. Speaking of good luck charms, Sarah started unzipping her suit and pulled out a bullet. She bragged that it was her good luck charm, the bullet from her savior who had rescued them not long ago. For her, it was a proud reminder of how lucky she had been. Alpha commented that it was nice how he had just saved them, and now those two had saved him. But Akira felt something was off. Alpha asked if he was glad and answered her own question. Not only had he been saved, but he also got to sneak a peek at something. Although Alpha was just as good as Sarah, she teased Akira, asking if being able to touch someone meant more to him. Akira, annoyed, told Alpha to shut up. Suddenly, an argument caught his attention. Elena and Katsuragi were arguing about payment, with Katsuragi admitting he was broke. He wasn't trying to scam them, though, and to prove it, he showed them his goods, which could sell for a fortune. But something else caught their eye. Sarah pointed it out. It was a gun called Ragnarok, a weapon capable of firing annihilation warheads. Elena and Sarah approached it, amazed by its power. Katsuragi, proud of his prize from a recent shipment job, explained the hardships he endured to obtain it. Elena and Sarah smiled upon hearing this. Katsuragi, sensing something was up, asked why they were smiling. Elena then asked Sarah if she could use it with her strength. Immediately, Katsuragi intervened, insisting that the Ragnarok was worth more than what they had done for him, making it an unfair deal. But Elena argued that since he was broke, they needed something as payment. As a businessman, Katsuragi knew this was true. Nervously, he signaled Akira to talk to them since he knew them, but Akira looked away, not wanting to get involved. Feeling betrayed, Katsuragi reluctantly agreed to hire them as bodyguards until he could pay them fully. But if he didn't pay them in time, they would take the Ragnarok as compensation. Katsuragi's face looked like he had been robbed in broad daylight, but he had no choice but to agree. Akira commented that making a deal wasn't easy, and Alpha agreed. But then Akira started to wobble. Alpha asked if he was alright, and he said he was, though he was feeling dizzy. However, his body told a different story. He collapsed to the floor, unable to move, with everything becoming blurry and dark. He saw Alpha one last time, still worried, but she reassured him it was fine and that he should rest. With that, his consciousness blacked out. He found himself in a white, empty, and endless space. Everything was pitch white. Was this a dream? He wondered. He looked around and saw Alpha near him, talking like an AI. She kept repeating, Subject 1. Failure, destination not reached, progress halted by death of subject. Support procedures require review, with different subject numbers. Akira was confused by what she was saying, but she continued to repeat her words, one after another, until her last line. Subject 499, in progress. Destination not reached, assessing particulars. End of report. Then she stopped talking. Akira asked himself if it was over. The white, endless place shattered like a mirror, falling apart. When everything was gone, his thoughts again blacked out. He woke up in a cozy room, thinking about the dream he had. Alpha, who was by his side, greeted him. Akira greeted her back and asked where they were, looking around. Just then, Sarah opened the door and greeted Akira, but her revealing clothes caught him off guard. Immediately, he asked Alpha what was going on. Alpha told him he was in a safe place and urged him to try to remember what happened before he blacked out. He recalled collapsing in the truck, but that was it. Sarah then told Akira where his clothes were. In a hurry, he immediately started putting them on. Nervous, he struggled with his pants, and Sarah offered to help, but he quickly refused. After dressing, he asked Sarah why he was there. Sarah suggested he take a seat, and once he did, she dropped the bombshell. He had been asleep for 3 days. Sarah explained that he had fainted due to overdosing on recovery capsules, which can cause many side effects. They figured he would recover once the excess nanomachines in his body calmed down, so they brought him to their house to rest. Akira bowed and thanked them for taking care of him. He then asked if they had rescued him as part of their emergency job, but Sarah admitted they had chosen to help him of their own accord. Akira asked if she was sure, feeling guilty that he couldn't pay them back. In response, Sarah proposed that he answer a question for her. Akira asked what it was. With determination in her eyes, Sarah asked if he was the one who saved them from the Kuzuhara ruins. 2 days earlier, Sarah had told Shizuka about what happened to Akira. Sarah joked that it was the second time he had been attacked by a horde of monsters, to which Shizuka commented that maybe he had bad luck, but since he was fine, there was nothing to worry about. Then Shizuka asked Sarah where Elena was. Sarah replied that she was keeping an eye on Katsuragi nearby. As if seeing through her, Shizuka asked what the real reason was for her visit. Sarah admitted that she wanted to talk about the time she was saved from the Kuzuhara ruins. Shizuka mentioned that she had heard the story so many times she could almost recite it by heart. Sarah asked if Shizuka knew who her savior was, but Shizuka asked why she would know. Sarah replied that it was because Shizuka's instincts were usually spot on. However, Shizuka still said she didn't know. Sarah, frustrated, demanded an answer, but Shizuka calmly explained that if she really didn't know or couldn't guess, she would say she didn't know. As a friend, if she guessed wrong, it could cause trouble for Sarah and someone else, so she would say she didn't know. Moreover, if her savior were a friend of Shizuka's, she wouldn't betray their trust if they asked her not to reveal anything, so she would still say she didn't know. As a businesswoman, she couldn't go around spreading her customers' private information, so once again, she would say she didn't know. In the end, Shizuka's answer would always be the same: she didn't know. This made it difficult for Sarah, but Shizuka told her that it wasn't the reason she had come to see her. Confused, Sarah asked what she meant. Shizuka had already guessed that Sarah had a suspicion about who her savior was, but her logic and experience didn't align with it. That's why Sarah came to Shizuka to confirm her guess, and Shizuka hit the nail on the head. Shizuka asked how much Sarah really wanted to know about her savior's details. Sarah hesitated, but Shizuka advised her to think it over and ask them sincerely. If they lied, well, that's life. Sarah thought it over and decided she would ask when she was ready, thanking Shizuka for the advice. Shizuka then shared her own intuition and asked if Sarah knew about old domain users. Curious, Sarah asked what that was. Shizuka explained that old domain users are people who can access old world networks in ways others can't understand. She suggested Sarah ask Elena for more details, but Sarah asked why Shizuka brought it up. Shizuka explained that some users could access ruins and learn their layout, as well as the exact positions of every monster and human inside. She speculated that this might be why Akira didn't tell them the truth. Later, at their house, Sarah asked Elena about the pros and cons of being an old domain user and what it meant for those around them. Elena explained that the best benefit for old domain users is that they can access the old world network. The old domain contains countless treasures and priceless knowledge, but it's difficult to connect with their current technology. They even need special terminals to discover ruins. But users can access the old domain easily without any equipment, and there's a theory that the ancient network is immune to the colorless fog. However, the side effect is that users connect it directly to their brains, which poses risks if they take in more data than they can handle. After all, a surge of information could fry the user's brain, killing them instantly. Sarah was worried about this, but Elena reassured her that it's extremely rare. Despite the risks, Sarah concluded that being an old domain user isn't that great. But Elena countered, saying that it's so valuable that people might gang up to kidnap or exploit users. And if a government or corporation gets hold of a user, that person would probably get a cushy life in exchange for their freedom. With all of this in mind, in the present, she continued to ask Akira if he was the one who saved them. Akira worried if he could escape or reason with her, but Sarah persisted, knowing that Akira had a lot on his mind, so she promised not to pry. She just wanted to know one thing: was he the one who saved them? If he didn't want to answer, she'd give up and never ask again. But one last time, she asked if he was the one who saved them from the ruins. Feeling trapped and guilty, Akira confessed his secret. He admitted that he was the one who saved them and felt sorry for not telling them earlier. But Sarah held his hands, smiling as she said, "Thank you for saving me and Elena." Her bright smile and sincere gratitude pained him. Sarah had waited so long to thank her savior and apologized for forcing him to reveal the truth. She couldn't help but express her thanks to the one who saved her. It was a selfish reason, she admitted. But Akira reassured her that she shouldn't worry because they saved his life too. He reasoned that they were just both lucky. If he said it like that, Sarah wouldn't make a big deal out of it. Then Sarah offered him some food, as he was probably hungry. But his face didn't seem particularly happy. While eating, Sarah discussed the gear they looted from those who attacked them, asking if Akira wanted a share. Akira declined, saying he had no right to claim it now since he left it there at the time. Sarah felt guilty because not only did he save their lives, but he also solved their financial problems. But Akira said that since he couldn't repay them for what they did for him, they should just cancel out their debts. Sarah explained that she's augmented with nanomachines stored in her chest. It was small when he saved them back then, but now it's packed. She needs nanomachines to survive, which is why she's really grateful to him. However, Akira felt embarrassed with her casually showing it to him. Sarah noticed this and offered to throw in a little extra since he saved their lives. But Akira simply told her not to tease him. Alpha chimed in, arguing that he never reacted like that with her. She also knew she had a better figure than Sarah. Is it the barely clothed look he's into? With everything settled, Akira thanked Sarah once again before leaving. Sarah hesitantly asked if she could tell Elena about it and promised him they wouldn't tell anyone. He agreed as long as they didn't spread it around. Besides, Shizuka knows it too. Akira told Sarah that Shizuka had bluffed him into revealing the truth. Then, he thanked them again and left. But instead of feeling happy, he felt down. He arrived in his hotel room feeling gloomy about what had just happened. Alpha asked if he was alright, and he said yes. But Alpha told him that he couldn't fool her. That's why if they're alone, he should let out whatever is holding him back because that alone will make him feel better. Akira looked at Alpha, and hearing those words, he vented his feelings. This was his first time being thanked, and it felt painful. He didn't rescue them because he wanted to save them. He rescued them as an excuse to kill, but this time they saved his life for real. He felt guilty seeing Sarah smile sincerely at him and thank him so happily. For him, it wasn't something he deserved. Alpha advised him that he should save them next time. This would cancel out his guilt by doing something good in return for what he did. Akira made up his mind and decided to follow her advice. He thanked her as he now felt a lot better than before. Alpha was glad to hear those words. He should also continue to get stronger so that he could help those two when the time comes. Then, Alpha reminded Akira that it had been 3 days. Didn't he say that he would visit Cheryl? At Cheryl's base, Akira finally arrived. It took a while, but he showed up, and that's what matters. Cheryl introduced Akira and instructed the others to treat him with respect, though someone didn't seem to recognize his strength. Akira made it clear that his only business was with Cheryl and that he had no interest in joining their gang. He told them to take any questions to Cheryl since she was their boss, not him. After saying that, he walked away. Cheryl was concerned. Akira was a significant figure for her gang, and she worried that his bluntness might cause trouble. Then, the boy from earlier arrogantly approached Akira, demanding an explanation for his words. But Akira told him to ask Cheryl, not him, and then ignored him, telling Cheryl to come with him as he needed her for something. This enraged the boy, who clenched his fist and tried to punch Akira, but Akira dodged and punched him back, throwing him to the ground, then pointed his pistol at him and fired a shot, shocking everyone. Fortunately, Akira purposely missed, leaving the boy trembling in fear. He then told Cheryl that since she runs the place, she should make sure they don't cross the line and get them in shape before he starts wondering if she ordered them to kill him. He glared at her menacingly, making her tremble. Then he left, with Cheryl following behind. Outside, Akira asked if that was good enough. Cheryl, confused, asked what he meant. Akira explained that Cheryl had called him to put on a show. Even Cheryl couldn't believe it, but she told him it was good enough. Now she started to wonder if it had all been an act. Akira led Cheryl to where the truck from Katsuragi was parked. Inside, Darius was glad to see Akira back in shape, and Katsuragi joked about him showing off his girlfriend. He then asked what brought them there, saying he was only interested if it paid. But Akira told him that it all depended on his business skills. Now that he knew it paid, Cheryl was even more confused. The proposal was that Akira wanted Katsuragi to help Cheryl run her gang. In exchange, Akira would sell his relics directly to him. It was a good deal if you thought about it, but Katsuragi wanted to confirm one thing first. What was Cheryl to him? Akira answered that they were just two kids from the slum. He knew her well enough to make this offer, but he'd cut her loose if she got in his way. That was Cheryl to him. Katsuragi understood but asked one last question. By selling relics to him, Akira wouldn't boost his hunter's rank. But Akira wasn't worried about that as long as he was paid enough to make up for it, and with that, they had a deal. Katsuragi then offered Cheryl a handshake, which confused her, but Katsuragi explained that since they would be doing business together, they should at least shake hands. Cheryl apologized and took his hand, but Katsuragi suddenly pulled her towards him, menacingly telling her not to betray him. Akira told Katsuragi that if she ever caused any problems, he should let him know immediately, and Akira would deal with her in his own way. Katsuragi asked what he meant by that, and Akira explained that he would kill her and dump her body in the wasteland. Since Akira was busy, he gave Cheryl a terminal to use if she needed something. He also told her that if she couldn't reach him for a long time, she should assume he was dead, and he would think the same. He left the details to them and walked away. As they watched him leave, Katsuragi was surprised by Akira's threat, but Cheryl defended him, reasoning that it only meant he was serious about their business. Katsuragi then asked if their relationship was really as simple as Akira said and if she was sure she wouldn't take it further, perhaps becoming his girlfriend. But Cheryl questioned how that connected with supporting her gang. For Katsuragi, it was everything. He wanted to work with Akira long-term, and that depended on his relationship with Cheryl. Cheryl admitted that she did want to get closer to Akira, but what could a slum kid do? Katsuragi noted that Akira knew two beautiful hunters, raising his standards. Cheryl asked where he was going with this, and Katsuragi took out a bag of makeup, explaining that it was high quality and would make her look good enough to attract Akira's attention. To clarify, this was an investment from Katsuragi for their long-term partnership. However, this only worsened things for Cheryl, wounding her pride as a woman. Meanwhile, at Cartridge Freaks, Akira entered and was greeted by Elena and Shizuka. Akira thanked Elena for her help, and when he was about to buy some ammo from Shizuka, she ran off the counter and hugged him tightly. Akira panicked, but when he heard Shizuka say she was glad he was safe, he calmed down and returned her embrace. Shizuka told Akira that being a hunter might be a dangerous job, but he shouldn't scare her like that. Akira apologized for making her worry. Elena leaned in and offered to hug him next, but Akira told her, "Please don't tease me." Speaking of hugs, Elena remembered that when he passed out, Sarah used Akira's body as a body pillow. She asked if he was okay since Sarah was stronger than she looked. Akira assured her that he was fine. Back at Cheryl's base, Cheryl asked Ario, the boy who had acted rudely toward Akira, if he was still there. Ario apologized for his mistake, but Cheryl, clearly pissed off, told him to leave. Ario tried to explain that since Akira looked like a normal kid, he thought he was fooling Cheryl. But this only enraged her more. She questioned how there could be a normal kid who hunted in the ruins for a living. If that was normal to him, she told him to go to the ruins and bring back a relic. She ordered her men to kick Ario out, yelling that since they had agreed to make her their leader, they should follow her orders. If they didn't want to, they should leave with him. They dragged Ario away as Cheryl panted, catching her breath. A few days later, in the Kuzuhara ruins, Akira was lifting a bag filled with relics, struggling under the weight. He complained that they had taken too many relics this time, but Alpha reminded him that he needed better gear ASAP. What happened last time could happen again, and if it did, they could easily tear him apart. She insisted he bear with it if he wanted to get stronger. While carrying the load, Alpha alerted Akira that someone was nearby. It was Ario. Akira recalled what Arisia had told him. Since Akira had secured help from a guy named Katsuragi, the gang was doing well now. Arisia had also promised Ario that she would talk things out with Cheryl, so he shouldn't do anything stupid. But it seemed like Ario had done it again. He had gone alone into the ruins with only a pistol, hoping to find a relic to get back in Cheryl's good graces. But he encountered a monster, and it looked like this was how his life would end. Using binoculars, Akira spotted him and commented on his recklessness for coming to the ruins with only a pistol. But looking back, he realized he had been just as reckless when he first started. He admitted that he had been pushing his luck and that meeting Alpha had made everything work out. Alpha agreed, noting that while they were both reckless, Ario didn't have Akira's luck. That was what separated them. It was a good point. Akira kneeled down and readied his rifle. He thought it must have been fate that they met and that helping him might give him some luck of his own. Besides, Akira could use a helping hand. The monster was about to kill Ario, but Akira sniped it in the head, saving Ario's life. Ario smiled, relieved that he had survived. He noticed a figure in the distance. It was Akira. Akira signaled for him to come over, and though terrified, Ario obeyed. Akira ordered him to carry the heavy bag, and together they barely made it back to Cheryl's base. Akira told Cheryl to take Ario back, explaining that he had helped him with a job. Akira smirked, pleased with the outcome. The relics they sold had fetched 8 million orum, after all. Katsuragi had almost talked him down to 5 million, but Akira still couldn't believe they had just made 7 figures from those relics. But for Alpha's plan, that money wouldn't last long, as they would spend it all tomorrow. Akira was shocked. It was 8 million orum, after all, but to Alpha, it was just pocket change. Akira didn't dare argue with her at this point, and since they will be spending those 8 million, Akira will have to stay in a room without a bathtub. Akira said his goodbyes and left. Cheryl asked Ario what had happened, but even he didn't know. While walking, Akira asked where they would spend the money. Alpha replied that they would buy a power suit. It's a suit that helps him carry heavy stuff easily. But with Alpha's help, she can make it much more useful than that. And this is his first step in conquering the ruin Alpha wants to take over. That's why he should expect great things from it. 2 weeks later, Akira is in his room, waiting patiently for the suit he ordered. Alpha doesn't want Akira to go to the ruins without it. Akira complained that he wants a room with a bathtub already. Alpha told him that Shizuka will call him when his order is ready, so he should focus on his studies. But Akira argued that her dress doesn't make things easier for him. It's like a game to her that every time he answers wrongly, she strips more clothes, and if he answers correctly, she puts more on. That's why Akira should work harder if he doesn't want her to end up naked. Akira could only think that this might be payback for him always telling her to put on more clothes. Then Alpha told Akira that Cheryl is calling him. He answered and asked what's up. Cheryl said that some men from another gang were demanding to see him. They're tough to deal with since they keep insisting Akira is the boss and can't be reasoned with. That's why she's asking him to come to her base. Akira saw this as a chance to escape the boredom of studying. As he arrived at the base, they announced his arrival. 3 guys, especially a man with a low mohawk hairstyle, stared at Akira. The guy really left some hair there, must be some kind of fashion. Well, shit. The guy with the weird hairstyle commented that Akira was younger than he expected. As Akira approached Cheryl, he asked what was going on. The guy with the strange hairstyle wouldn't stop talking, explaining to Akira that he wants them to give up the base and the rest of the turf to them. Cheryl argued back that they never agreed to any of that, but this guy just menacingly shouted at her to shut the FCK up. Cheryl could only glare at him. This guy got orders from someone named Shijima to ask for the turf they couldn't manage. But seeing that the gang is run by some kids, he got more ambitious and wanted to take it all. The guy came to Akira and asked if they had a deal, but Akira just told him to ask Cheryl since she already turned him down. Akira confirmed that the base is Cheryl's property and that she's the boss, not him. That's why the guy should listen to Cheryl instead of wasting his time on something as trivial as this. After saying that, he planned to leave. Cheryl tried to stop him, but this arrogant man threatened him, saying he works with the Shijima gang, which is on a whole different level compared to them. That's why Akira can't just walk away after turning them down. And besides, they already did their homework on him. Akira asked what they knew. He confidently said they could track down his hotel. Alpha advised Akira to move to a better spot, just in case. Akira seemed calm about his statement and said that attacking a hotel with hunters inside is suicide. But the guy didn't stop and continued to yap that they also know where he shops, at Cartridge Freaks. But as soon as Akira heard this, his eyes immediately changed. Just as the guy was about to finish his sentence, Akira shot him in the stomach, killing him instantly. Akira was pissed. The other men readied their guns, but Akira took them out first. Alpha asked if he really needed to kill him. Akira answered yes without hesitation. Alpha could only sigh and support him in his decision. After some time exchanging fire, those men lost to Akira, pleading for their lives. Cheryl watched in terror. Akira asked if they were working for Shijima too. They said yes and begged Akira not to shoot them. He didn't but instead asked them to lead him to their base and asked Cheryl to come with him. This shocked Cheryl. Why would Akira want to go to the enemy's base? In the streets, while dragging something, people stared and murmured about it. Cheryl couldn't even look at it properly. She finally gathered the courage to look behind her, only to find the corpse of the arrogant man from earlier being dragged by Akira. A wall with an aura that makes you want to stay away is guarded by dozens of men. Inside a certain room, the boss of the man Akira just killed introduces himself as Shijima and welcomes them to his turf. He tries to get the whole picture and asks if Akira is the reason why one of his men died. Akira says yes and calmly introduces himself. Next, he introduces Cheryl, making it clear that she didn't help, but she's involved, so he brought her along to keep her in the loop. Shijima's expression changes, and he asks why they're there. Akira responds that it's to settle the deal and get some answers. Shijima glares at Cheryl, making her flinch in fear. He expects Akira to use Cheryl to beg for forgiveness, but it seems he only dragged her along. Thinking it's a waste of time, Shijima takes out his terminal, not taking them seriously, and asks what happened, saying he'll listen. Then, Akira suddenly says that it's a bad idea and that he'll just kill them one by one, shocking Shijima, who was just about to order his men to ambush Akira. Shijima drops the idea and places his terminal on the table, saying Akira is cocky. Akira remarks that the slums are nicer than the ruins because monsters don't run away after a few encounters. Spoken like a true hunter. Cheryl is confused by their conversation until she realizes that Shijima was planning to ambush them, but Akira figured it out and threatened to kill him first. Shijima, still puzzled, wonders how Akira knew his plan. Was it intuition? The rumors of him killing Cyborg might be true. Although Akira doesn't look strong, to Shijima, he's a landmine. Akira starts his questioning. Since he killed Shijima's men, will Shijima consider him an idiot, or will he seek revenge? If so, how many people does Akira have to kill before the rest give up? Shijima calmly asks why Akira killed his men. Akira answers that it was because they threatened him. Akira admits he's a coward. If someone threatens to kill him, he won't be able to sleep until he kills them first. Akira adds that Shijima's men came and told Cheryl to hand over her territory. He asks to confirm if Shijima sent his men to die as an excuse to launch an attack. Shijima asks Cheryl if that's true, and she says yes. Shijima understands Akira's point. If what Akira says is true, it's no wonder he thought they were looking for a fight. But Shijima can't back down just like that. If other gangs find out he backed down to a few brats, his reputation will suffer. However, since he understands their perspective, he wants to settle things peacefully. That goes for Akira too, since he doesn't want pointless killing. Shijima proposes to give them 1,000,000 aurum to make things fair. He also promises to play nice with Cheryl's gang from now on. For him, this is a generous proposal, as they both want to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Akira tells Cheryl that he wants the 1,000,000 aurum. Cheryl nervously says they don't have that kind of money, and Akira can't afford it either. Shijima clarifies that he's giving them a break by letting them pay off the killing. Akira sighs. With no choice, Akira slams 500,000 aurum on the table and proposes to pay the rest later. Shijima asks when he can pay, but Akira simply says, if I can, reasoning that a hunter doesn't have a stable income. Shijima sits there, staring at them, making Cheryl shake with nervousness, afraid that they've offended him. Shijima breaks the silence and says he considers the matter settled, telling them to leave as he's busy. One of his men reports that they've left the base. In anger, Shijima starts kicking the corpse of his man. He was acting so calm earlier, but now he looks scared by the fact that Akira really could kill him if he wanted to. Furiously, he orders his men to throw the body out with the trash. In the streets, Cheryl stops walking. Akira looks back and asks what's wrong. She murmurs that she can't take it and starts crying. Tears stream down her cheeks. Her mental state can't handle it anymore. This makes Akira nervous, asking Alpha if it's his fault, but Alpha tells him that even she doesn't know. However, one thing Alpha is sure of is that people around them will misunderstand this. Using the old trick he pulled last time, she grabs his hand, and they run off. Inside a building, he rents a room where Cheryl doesn't stop crying, confusing him even more. Then he remembers something. He hugs Cheryl in a panic, hoping it will calm her down. Cheryl is surprised by Akira's move. His reason for doing this is that when Shizuka did this to him, it calmed him down. Cheryl hugs back, squeezing him tightly, and begs Akira to help her. Akira reassures her that he will. Hearing this makes Cheryl smile. Akira's assurance makes her feel much safer, and she collapses in his arms. The burden is too much, and she falls asleep. Akira, still confused, asks what that was about. The next morning, Cheryl apologizes for what she did yesterday, but Akira doesn't mind. A lot happened, so he understands the burden she's carrying. He tells her he's there if she needs anything. Taking that offer, she immediately asks if she can hug him again, but Akira asks why. She explains that feeling his embrace makes her feel more secure. Although she can't explain it properly, it's soothing for her. She elaborates that running a gang is exhausting, and she's mentally worn out. That's why she was useless yesterday. To her, hugs are a cure. One little hug makes life easier, so for her, what's the harm? With all that talking, Akira finally gives in and agrees to her request. For Akira, as long as she's not crying, it's not a big deal. Cheryl also requests if he could rub her head too. Akira can only agree at this point. After some time, Cheryl returns to her base, and Akira can finally relax. What happened earlier made Akira exhausted. Akira asks Alpha why Cheryl is acting differently, but Alpha tells him not to worry. But deep down, Alpha thinks Cheryl is subtly manipulating Akira's thoughts, even if just a little, and she needs to be cautious around her. If you've been following this series, you know that this isn't just an innocent hug. Back at Cheryl's base, everyone is panicking about why they haven't returned yet. Since they've been gone for a whole day, they think Shijima probably killed them, and there's a possibility that a war will start. One of the kids hears this and wants to leave. But before he can reach the door, Cheryl opens it and asks if something happened while she was gone. Instead of answering, they demand answers from her. What happened? Is Akira dead? Do they have to give up their base? But she smiles and says Akira isn't hurt, and they worked out a deal with Shijima. She reassures them that everything is fine, making them all celebrate happily. Cheryl asks what they're doing, as she assigned them their jobs. When she asks where the others are, they answer that they probably ran away. But Cheryl calmly says she'll just make new schedules. She orders Arisia to ask around to find out who ran away and report to her. Then she tells Ario to track down everyone who fled. They can leave, but she won't allow them to take what they stole. Her expression hardens, and she tells Ario to take this job seriously. He snaps and shouts that she should leave the job to him. Cheryl then tells everyone to get back to work. Ario, who's next to Arisia, asks why Cheryl is a bit different today. On the rooftop of her base, Cheryl runs happily, then stops to stare down. Her gang needs to grow, for her and Akira. Back at Akira's hotel, Alpha tells Akira that Shizuka just called to say his power suit is ready. Akira immediately wants to go. At Cartridge Freaks, Shizuka apologizes for the delay. Akira wastes no time and immediately puts it on. The TLT-type Circa power suit, Chiron. Shizuka compliments Akira, saying it looks good on him. He thanks her with a smile. Then, Alpha says, "Hey there, hottie. Nice suit. ROWR. Akira immediately tells her to shut up. Alpha pouts, saying he's being mean. Akira explains that he knows she's teasing him. In the wasteland, Akira tells Alpha that once he gets the hang of his power suit, he can finally collect relics again. But Alpha says they won't be collecting relics for a while. She explains that he needs to take extra care because of his terrible luck. They were attacked by a horde twice. To be safe, Alpha decides they should take a break for a while so Akira can be ready next time. Akira can't argue and just agrees, but he's concerned about his finances. Fortunately, Alpha has already thought of this. She suggests that by taking jobs from the hunter's office, he should be able to cover his living expenses. Once his rank is high enough, he should be able to rent a car designed for the wasteland. That's their goal. With this in mind, they decide to start training with his new power suit. A few days later, Alpha informs Akira that she has signed him up at the hunter's office. His job is to patrol the wasteland, specifically to eliminate monsters around Kageyama. Since he'll be working with other hunters, it's relatively safe. Alpha then wishes Akira good luck. Life as a gangster isn't easy, especially when Cheryl's gang is filled with kids. Arisia is the one in charge of keeping them in line. Their days are jam-packed. They clean their turf and patrol it regularly. For Arisia, cleaning is the worst. With all the useless trash and scrap they could sell, it just makes her job harder. But what's really awful is having to deal with the corpses of Cyborg's men that Akira killed. Even the kids are complaining about cleaning up dead bodies. Arisia tries to reason with them, saying that if they keep their turf clean, they might get a ration center built in their area, but to the kids, it wasn't worth it. However, when Arisia mentioned that if they let things get worse, the city might just torch the whole place to ashes, they suddenly became the most enthusiastic cleaners you've ever seen. Meanwhile, in the relic selling business, Akira tells Katsuragi he's got some relics to unload. Ario, on the brink of collapse from carrying those heavy relics, is practically seeing stars. Katsuragi eyes the relics, and you can see the fire of a determined businessman light up in his eyes. Sure, Akira saved his life, but that doesn't mean Katsuragi's going to go easy on him. The relics are prime goods, easily worth 8 million orum. So, he starts with an offer of 5 million orum. Without skipping a beat, Akira shrugs and says, I'll just sell it somewhere else. He turns to leave, and Katsuragi nearly chokes on his own desperation, begging Akira to stay. It's your cue to haggle. Katsuragi protests, trying to keep his cool, but Akira's not having it. Final offer, now. One look at Akira's eyes, and Katsuragi knows the guy isn't bluffing. He ups it to 7 million, but Akira just keeps walking. Katsuragi panics and blurts out, okay, 8 million orum. Alpha wanted Akira to aim at a distant pebble, way farther than anything he'd practiced on. Skeptical but determined, Akira took aim. To his surprise, the rifle hit the pebble dead on. Alpha explained it was all thanks to the way she customized his suit's operating system, just like she had with his terminal. With a bit of pride, she added that she could now help him correct his aim. Akira, amazed, couldn't help but wonder out loud if there was anything she couldn't do. But then a thought hit him. Does this mean he can skip target practice now? Alpha shut that idea down quickly, reminding him that he might need to fight without the suit one day, and her help isn't foolproof everywhere. Now that Alpha had full control over his powered suit, she wanted to show Akira just how much more she could do for him. Akira, excited by this new potential, tested it out. In the next scene, he's zooming across the terrain like a human rocket. Alpha, controlling his suit, was moving his legs at lightning speed. But Akira wasn't exactly thrilled with this turbo mode, desperately wanting to stop. Panting as he collapsed onto the ground, Alpha proudly noted that now he could outrun an entire horde of monsters. Akira, still gasping for air, thought about how he'd probably fall apart before escaping in one piece, but Alpha reassured him it was better than dying. She laughed, but Akira wasn't sure if she was joking. She promised not to use that function unless it was absolutely necessary. Akira hoped she really meant that. Next up was hand-to-hand combat training, with none other than Alpha as his sparring partner. Confused, Akira asked how that would even work since Alpha couldn't physically touch him. Alpha calmly told him to take a swing at her. He did, and somehow hit her. Well, sort of. She explained she simulated the impact by locking the joints in his suit, just enough to make the training realistic. Then, in true Alpha fashion, she changed her attire and invited Akira to come at her with his best shot. He took the offer and charged in, but Alpha effortlessly dodged his attacks, almost as if she was toying with him. All the while, she calmly coached him on what to do next. But after one solid punch, Akira left himself completely exposed. Alpha seized the moment, sweeping his leg and flipping him flat onto his back. She explained how she'd tweaked the suit to make his movements smoother and reduce his chances of making mistakes. Now, all Akira had to do was train his body to respond the right way. They continued sparring, punching, dodging, until Akira made a huge blunder. Alpha, ever the opportunist, used it to hammer his head with a foot slam that would have crushed his skull, if it wasn't just an augmented projection of himself. As their training continued into the night, Akira lay sprawled on the ground, surrounded by the corpses of his dead augmented clones. Alpha called it a day, while Akira stared up at the sky, exhausted but alive, mostly. Panting heavily, Akira asked Alpha why he'd been getting flashes of strange feelings lately, almost like deja vu. Alpha explained it was probably his mind trying to keep up with the suit's advanced systems, but she advised him to hold on to that feeling. It might help later. Too exhausted to even twitch a muscle, Akira resigned himself to the situation. But no worries, Alpha took over, controlling the suit to walk him home. All Akira had to do was focus on his training. In a last-ditch effort, Akira begged her to go easy on him next time. Fast forward a few days, and now that Akira had gotten a solid grip on his suit, Alpha signed him up for his first gig at the hunter's office. His mission? A wasteland patrol. The job was straightforward. Cull monsters around Kageyama. It was the ideal starting point for newbie hunters like him. The pay wasn't bad either. He'd get bonuses for each monster he killed, and even if he didn't manage to take any down, he'd still receive a base paycheck. Not too shabby for an entry-level hunter. At the meeting place, Akira and the other hunters lined up to scan their IDs. Afterward, they would board trucks with their assigned numbers, and missing their ride meant missing the job for the day. When it was Akira's turn, he scanned in and was directed to truck number 14. Strangely, Alpha didn't seem surprised at all by the assignment. Akira asked Alpha what she meant by the truck number having baggage, but she brushed it off casually, saying it was nothing important. As Akira stepped into the truck, he could feel the weight of dozens of hunters' eyes on him. The stares were intense, and it felt like he was being judged. Clutching his rifle a little tighter, the tension in the air was palpable. Out of nowhere, Alpha, always up to something, changed her outfit to a bikini and casually pointed out that a seat was free for him. Confused, Akira asked why on earth she changed clothes. Alpha coolly responded that it was to add a little touch and color to his view. Before he could even react, she shifted into a bunny costume, asking how it looked. Annoyed, Akira told her to knock it off and switch back to normal. In truth, though, the tension he felt earlier had pretty much evaporated thanks to her antics. As Akira moved closer to his seat, a nearby man muttered something about his unlucky day and questioned why he had been stuck in a daycare on wheels. Just then, a kid slammed his hands down and stood up, defiantly saying that age didn't matter in hunting, it was all about skill. The arrogant man, full of himself, smirked and asked what the kid's hunter rank was. The boy, clearly not one to back down, shouted, 19, which immediately shut the man up. Akira, still unsure, asked Alpha how impressive rank 19 was. Alpha explained that it was above average, considering the typical rank for this patrol was around 15. But the man, refusing to be humbled, mocked the kid, calling him a drunkam brat, and suggesting his rank was only because of his background. Alpha explained that drunkam was one of the largest hunter syndicates in the area. The man went on, accusing the kid of only having fancy gear because of his connections, saying that specs don't translate into skill. This infuriated the kid, who shot back, calling the man the real deadweight. He argued that the man had no right to be upset about patrolling with younger hunters and should just see it as an opportunity to get more kills if he was actually any good. At that moment, a girl named Yumina stepped in. Without missing a beat, she clocked her own teammate, knocking him flat on the floor, to everyone's shock. She picked him up and warned him not to pick fights with other hunters, especially because they are kids. Katsuya, the arrogant hunter, still grumbled that he wasn't going to let anyone talk down to him. Yumina, undeterred, told him if he wanted respect, he should prove his worth on the field. After all, real tough guys have thick skin. This silenced Katsuya, who sulked as he sat down, pouting. With a sigh, Yumina applied a patch to Katsuya's cheek, and he, still annoyed, told her that if she was going to patch him up anyway, maybe she shouldn't have hit him in the first place. Yumina's words didn't seem to calm Katsuya down, so with no other option, she knocked him out. Irie, another girl sitting nearby, commented that loudmouths like him would just be eating their dust soon enough, so he should learn to hold it in. It was a fair point, but the arrogant man, Katsuya, only grew more irritated, unable to swallow his pride. Then, a new voice broke through the tension. A man approached, apologizing for the ruckus. He introduced himself as Shikarabe from Drunkam and explained he'd be overseeing the rookies, so they shouldn't worry about being held back. He assured everyone that their performance wouldn't disappoint. This immediately got the attention of the other hunters, and even the arrogant man got silenced. The murmurs around the truck turned cautious as they sized up Shikarabe, clearly someone they couldn't afford to mess with. With that, the patrol began, and the team rolled out. Monsters soon came into view, and the shooting commenced. Unlucky for Akira, the arrogant man sits next to him, still muttering complaints. The other side's getting all the luck, Katsuya grumbled, then shouted in Akira's ear, telling him he should go join his buddies. Akira replied he wasn't with them, but Katsuya wasn't buying it, pointing out Akira's fancy power suit. Akira explained that he'd scraped by, cutting back on everything just to afford it. But before he could finish, something in Akira's expression changed. His eyes darkened as he mentioned he hadn't soaked in a proper tub for ages, and he was out here just so he could afford a room with a bath again. That cold stare actually unsettled the arrogant man, who quickly apologized for lumping him in with the younger hunters. Meanwhile, the kid from earlier was showing off, taking down monsters and getting praised by two girls for his skill. This, of course, irritated the arrogant man even more. He muttered that the rookies were getting full of themselves. Just then, he spotted a monster in the distance. But it was too far to hit. He noticed Akira was also using an rifle and sarcastically praised the weapon. Then, in a mock gesture of goodwill, he offered to let Akira take the first shot, knowing full well he didn't expect him to make it from that distance. Akira, however, had a plan. He asked Alpha for help, and with her support, he aimed at the monster even as the truck was moving. Akira took the shot. Headshot. The monster went down instantly. The arrogant man stood there, speechless, then awkwardly praised Akira for the impossible hit. Even Katsuya, the arrogant man's rival, noticed the kill and was equally shocked. He figured Akira had just gotten lucky, but at that range, it didn't seem possible. Their first patrol wrapped up, and as the clock hit 1800 hours, payments started rolling in. Akira scanned his ID and was pleasantly surprised with the results. Alpha explained that his base pay was 5,000 Aurum, but with only one kill under his belt, the bonus wouldn't be much. Akira's mood dropped. That wasn't enough to cover the cost of a room with a bathtub. Sensing his disappointment, Alpha reassured him that he had another patrol in the morning and 4 more in the afternoon. It should be enough by the end of the day. Just then, a familiar voice called out to him. It was Elena. She greeted Akira, mentioning how long it had been since they last met. Akira greeted her back, and Elena complimented his new suit, saying it looked good on him. She was in a hurry, though, and after a brief chat, she suggested they catch up at Shizuka's store sometime. Akira watched as she left, and memories of their time together flashed in his mind. He silently thanked her but felt a pang of pain. Alpha, noticing the shift in his mood, asked what was on his mind. Akira brushed it off, refocusing on his next patrol. As he scanned his ID, he was assigned his next truck, and to his surprise, it was number 14 again. Alpha mentioned it might be destiny, but Akira only grew more confused. He asked why she kept bringing up the number 14. Alpha casually replied that it's just seen as a bit unlucky, meaning Akira might have some rotten luck, which she readily agreed with. As the patrol kicked off, there was no shortage of monsters this time, a good thing for Akira, who was now optimistic about affording that elusive room with a bath. But Alpha quickly reminded him not to get too comfortable. There were still more patrols to run that afternoon. If he wanted more than one night in luxury, he'd have to work hard. Akira joked that at least the troublemakers weren't on board, making the number 14 feel less cursed. But then, for the next patrol, he got truck 14 again, leaving him speechless. He wondered aloud if they were just reusing the number. Alpha reassured him that they probably were, though even she sounded skeptical. Noticing they had some time before the next run, Alpha suggested Akira take a nap while he could, and he gladly followed her advice. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Elena and Sarah were apologizing for being late, meeting up with Katsuya and his group. Elena teased that Katsuya seemed a little too hyped up, which embarrassed him. Shikarabe, who was overseeing the rookies, chimed in, saying Katsuya was their responsibility now. But to everyone's surprise, Elena casually mentioned they were actually canceling, which shocked the group. Shikarabe was not happy. It was too late for cancellations and he demanded a solid reason. Elena calmly explained that they had received another offer, one they were prioritizing. Shikarabe was incredulous, pressing her on why they'd pick another job over druncams. With a smirk, Elena revealed that the job came from the ELGC. Shikarabe was stunned. Elena explained that the ELGC wanted them to patrol near the city. While the route was dangerous, the fact that the ELGC itself issued the request made it stand out. Shikarabe was still doubtful, asking if they were really sure about this. Elena confirmed, noting it was strange since the city usually handled such jobs, but this was a formal offer through the Hunter office. Unless Druncam wants to negotiate with the ELGC for them. Shikarabe sighed, knowing it was a lost cause. He raised his hands and told them not to ask for the impossible, agreeing to inform his bosses. Still, what's going on for the ELGC to ask for this job? Even Elena doesn't have a clue. She just tells Shikarabe to let Druncam know they did the right thing by canceling. In person, of course. They leave, leaving Shikarabe deep in thought. Why would the ELGC hire Elena and Sarah? He's on their level, so it doesn't add up. Something's off. If only he wasn't stuck babysitting rookies, he could be looking into that job himself. He understands that training is important, but the rookies' gear comes out of their own pockets, and they're stuck doing low-paying gigs just to get experience. He can only hope the higher-ups will consider that once in a while. Meanwhile, Elena and Sarah are on the move. Sarah asks what exactly they need to do on this job. Elena did some digging and found out that hunters in nearby ruins received similar offers. If the ELGC is hiring hunters at their level, they might want every available one back in the city. But she still can't figure out why. They can only hope it's a precaution, but they need to be ready for anything. Cut to Akira, who is jolted awake by Alpha. In front of him stands a man, staring intently at him. Is this Akira's Prince Charming? The man informs Akira he was about to boot him out if he slept through the start of his patrol. But, surprisingly, Akira woke up just in time. Looks like he's got one heck of an alarm clock. Akira mentions it's top of the line, which earns him a sharp rebuke from Alpha, who's less than thrilled about being compared to an alarm clock. Akira quickly apologizes, but Alpha is already pouting. The man then orders everyone to move out and warns that anyone starting trouble will be kicked out and marked absent. And so, another, normal, day begins. As the truck continued its patrol, Akira noticed something odd. There were no monsters in sight. Alpha confirmed his suspicion, and the hunters around him started murmuring about their bad luck. But it wasn't just luck. The truck's scanners should have picked up something by now. Something was definitely off. Suddenly, the truck screeched to a halt. The man in charge climbed the ladder and relayed the news. Their patrol was officially over, marked as completed. The reason? A massive horde of monsters was advancing from the ruins of Kuzuhara town, headed straight for the city. The city's defense force was already mobilizing, and emergency orders were issued. Every available hand, including theirs, was needed for backup. He explained the situation clearly. They'd take a vote. If most of them agreed, they'd rush to the nearest distress call. If not, they'd head back to the city. They had 6 minutes to decide. Immediately, nervous chatter spread through the group. Taking on a horde big enough to warrant the city's defense force, they'd be signing their death warrants. Akira, listening to the conversations, felt the tension rise. Alpha assumed Akira would vote to head back to the city, and he wasn't about to argue. No one in their right mind would volunteer for this kind of job. Then, a loud argument broke out. Shikarabe and Katsuya were going at it. Katsuya was dead set on taking the emergency job, citing Druncam's policy to take on such missions to boost their reputation. But Shikarabe shot back, saying that policy only applied when they stood a chance of surviving. He made it clear that he wasn't part of Katsuya's team, and he wasn't going along with this madness. Time was up. The announcer called for hands. Only one went up, Katsuya's. The room was silent as everyone stared at him, either in disappointment or indifference. The decision was made. They'd head back to the city. The announcer reminded Katsuya that if he was serious about taking the job, he'd better get out and run after the horde. Katsuya cursed under his breath, frustrated. He wanted to help because it was the same job that Elena and Sarah had taken. Hearing that, Akira felt a jolt of surprise. Katsuya's team tried reasoning with him, but the young hotshot was set on rushing off to play hero. The announcer's sarcastic suggestion to run must have stuck, because Katsuya was already getting ready to leave on foot. But just as he was about to step out, Yumina called out to him. He stopped, ready for a confrontation. What no one expected was the gun Yumina aimed directly at him. The air grew thick with tension. Even Katsuya looked taken aback. Katsuya asked if she was serious. Yumina, with a calm but firm smile, told him she absolutely was. She explained that while she admired his heroic nature, how he loved saving people and how his hard work always paid off in those moments of triumph, she wasn't about to let him throw his life away. If he insisted on taking the risk, she'd go with him. But if he tried trading his life for someone else's, she wouldn't hesitate to shoot him in the leg to stop him. Yumina's words hung in the air like a warning bell. Everyone, including Katsuya, realized that this wasn't just about heroics, it was about survival. If Katsuya understood correctly, he should keep his hands away from the edge of the truck. He could only glare at Yumina, feeling the intensity of the situation. Irie squeezed his hand and shook her head, silently pleading with him. With a resigned sigh, Katsuya pulled his hand back from the edge. Yumina said he was free to resent her for forcing him to stay, but Katsuya shook his head, admitting he wouldn't. He realized he hadn't been thinking clearly. If he had, he would have seen the risks. Even if they did go, they would have only been a burden. In his typical heroic fashion, he thanked Irie and Yumina for stopping him from making a mistake. Shikarabe then chimed in, saying Katsuya should be thanking those girls. If Yumina hadn't intervened, Shikarabe would have had to, and he wasn't kind enough to aim for just Katsuya's legs. He added that someone needed to rein in their problem child, who thought he was invincible. Shikarabe's words drew murmurs of agreement from the crowd. It was clear they were unimpressed with Katsuya's antics. The focus of the group shifted as they glanced down at the truck. Katsuya followed their gaze and saw Akira on a motorcycle with the man who had announced earlier. Akira was there. What was going on? To understand the situation, let's rewind a few minutes. When Akira heard that Elena and Sarah were in danger, he didn't hesitate. He jumped off the truck, with Alpha warning him about the danger and asking if he was sure about this decision. Akira knew the risks, but he wasn't going to back down. Alpha reminded him that he might not find Elena and Sarah or that they might not be in any real danger. Even if he tried, his efforts might barely make a dent in the horde. But Akira was determined. If he couldn't make a difference, at least he'd know he tried. He didn't want to be left wondering if he could have done something. With his eyes blazing with determination, Akira was ready to go, even if it seemed like a lost cause. Alpha sighed at his resolve. The man from earlier noticed Akira's determination and asked if he was really taking the emergency job. He jokingly suggested that Akira should walk there, but Akira replied seriously that he would run. The man clarified that walking was just a figure of speech, but Akira insisted that running was faster, especially in his suit. The man, clearly amused, laughed heartily and smacked the door as he laughed. Akira, unfazed, just watched. The man then asked if Akira could drive a motorcycle. Alpha confirmed that it wasn't a problem, so Akira said he was good to go. The man handed over the motorcycle and signed him up for the emergency job, leaving the rest of the truck's occupants in disbelief at Akira's boldness. He seemed almost reckless. The man explained that the motorcycle was an advance payment and urged Akira to get moving. He cheered Akira on to be daring, comparing true hunting to gambling big. Most gamblers quit before hitting it big, so Akira should seize the moment and take the risk. As Katsuya watched Akira leave, the scene shifted to the ruins. A massive horde of monsters charged toward the city, and hunters working the emergency job were doing their best to hold them back, awaiting reinforcements. One of them shouted to keep firing and not let the monsters get close. Meanwhile, Alpha updated Akira on his new ride. The motorbike was small and collapsible but built to handle the wasteland's rough terrain. Akira had gotten quite a deal. If it's as impressive as it seems, that advanced payment might cost Akira more than he anticipated. As Akira drove, he spotted monsters charging toward him. Alpha informed him that she would be in control of his suit from now on and reminded him of their melee training, as this situation would be similar. Akira took note as he approached the horde. Alpha warned him that she would push the suit to its limits to handle so many monsters effectively. She was straightforward. His body would take a beating. If he wanted to back out, now was his chance. Otherwise, he needed to brace himself. Akira assured Alpha he was ready. His resolve was firm, which reassured her. She gave him the go-ahead. As Akira drove toward the monsters, he fired his weapon with precision, his aim corrected by Alpha's support. It felt like she was almost controlling his body, which amazed him. Alpha was pleased that he appreciated her exceptional support. Akira's job was simply to keep up with her guidance, and it seemed he was managing well. After clearing a group of monsters, Akira continued to drive forward, then skidded to a stop on his motorcycle. He surveyed the approaching horde from a safe distance. The bike allowed him to maintain his distance, making the task easier compared to his past encounters with Katsuragi. The monsters were coming from farther east, and all he needed to do was reach the distress call up ahead. As he moved and fired his rifle, just think about how challenging this was. Like writing an essay with one hand while drawing with the other. Precision and accuracy were crucial. Meanwhile, the truck from earlier kept moving, with hunters aboard continuing to fire. However, their situation turned grim when they noticed their bullets bouncing off the monsters. A black figure emerged from the smoke, drawing closer to the tank. Suddenly, the truck exploded, and the culprits behind the destruction were revealed. Tanks. That's right, AFC King Tank. The truck from earlier came to a halt, and the hunters on board quickly disembarked to start shooting. One of them grumbled that they better be paid well for this job, while another said they would be if the scanners kept track of their kills, assuming they made it out alive. He then wondered where their backup was, but even his buddy had no clue. The tanks had wiped out their office contact, so they could only hope they had done their job before meeting their end. Suddenly, the monsters in front of them were eliminated, and they thought it might be the backup they were waiting for. Alpha estimated that only 10 hunters were still in combat and that there had been 25 casualties. She noted that Elena and Sarah were still missing and asked Akira what their next move should be. Akira didn't grasp what Alpha was getting at and simply said they needed to do whatever they could. Alpha wasn't expecting this response. She instructed him to clear the area before meeting with the patrol so they could strike the monsters from both sides. As Akira drove forward, shooting at the horde while keeping his distance, the other hunters watched in disappointment, seeing him alone. However, his buddy reassured them that he was likely the vanguard and urged them to keep shooting. Upon closer inspection, the hunters saw that the biker was just a kid. They joked that maybe he was a young-looking cyborg. The man thanked Akira and asked if he was their backup. Akira confirmed he had taken the emergency job. The man then requested some meds, as some of them were badly injured. Akira handed over the high-end medicine he had, though the man hesitated. Despite asking for help, he felt uneasy accepting such costly supplies. Akira interrupted, saying they could discuss it later. He had given the medicine because he couldn't stand by and let them die. The man thanked him and asked about their current situation. Alpha explained that their truck was too damaged to move, so they had to stand by until help arrived. Akira then asked what he needed to do to complete his job. Alpha clarified that his objective was to defend the city, meaning his job wouldn't end until the threat was neutralized. Then, to their shock, hostiles were detected at their 2 o'clock. The tanks from earlier had returned, fully resupplied. Akira asked what those things were, and Alpha identified them as cannon insects. She suspected that a surviving arms plant had built them. Akira wondered why a factory would give them bug legs. Alpha was uncertain, guessing either an AI had malfunctioned or it was simply bored and built them for fun. Just for fun, Akira thought. The cannon insects weren't just for show, their firepower was akin to that of a tank. With the insects' cannons in position, the hunters couldn't hit them from their current spot. It seemed the insects had learned from their previous encounter. The insects lifted their bodies sideways and slammed their feet into the ground. As soon as their feet touched, they fired. It was like a war thunder event. With such firepower, even America would want that AI. Amid the explosions, Alpha asked Akira if he was considering fleeing. Akira firmly said he wouldn't, not until he was the last one standing. Alpha smiled, pleased with his resolve. She advised him to take recovery capsules now while he still could. Akira said he would go in close and attack the insects and ask them to cover him. The man wondered if he'd be okay alone. Akira took some capsules and stated that splitting their attacks was the only way forward. He then drove off. The man smiled, thinking if a kid was brave enough to take on those cannon insects, what were they doing? He rallied his team to divide and conquer and to use their grenades without reservation. The clash of the century was about to begin, tanks versus hunters. Let the battle commence. As Akira charged toward the insect tanks, which continued to fire at him, he asked Alpha if they would be okay despite the missed shots. Alpha explained that the enemies had extremely low accuracy, suspecting errors in their blueprints. But their poor performance made their shots unpredictable, making it hard to foresee where exactly their shells would land. Even Alpha's superb calculations couldn't guarantee Akira's safety. His only hope was luck. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on his side. Alpha joked that he should pray she could handle his bad luck, and considering Akira chose to be here, he couldn't really blame luck for his predicament. Akira quipped that if it wasn't about luck, he might as well blame Alpha's so-called support if he got hit. Alpha wasn't thrilled by his comment. If that's how he saw it, she had no choice but to increase her support to keep him safe. When Akira asked what she meant, his motorbike suddenly accelerated at breakneck speed. The wind pressure was so intense it hurt him, even with the meds. But dying was not an option. He gritted his teeth and bore with it. With Alpha controlling his movements, he skillfully dodged the attacks. Alpha then informed him that his rifle couldn't directly damage the cannon insects. His shots merely bounced off their thick armor. If his rifle couldn't penetrate their defenses, what was the plan? Alpha instructed him to target the drones responsible for reloading the cannon insects. Akira looked around, spotting what seemed more like walking magazines than drones. If Akira could take out those reloaders, the insect cannons would run out of ammo and become sitting ducks. Once that happened, the other hunters could finish them off. Dodging shots from the tanks, Akira maneuvered expertly, then spotted the drones walking towards the tanks to reload them. He drove toward the drones, shot them before they could reload, and blew up the insect cannons. The other hunters watched in awe, their jaws dropping at Akira's actions. Who was this kid? They wondered. As Akira continued to shoot and destroy the drones, progress was being made, and the other hunters were pulling their weight. At this rate, victory seemed possible, but then Alpha detected something and warned Akira immediately. It appeared the insects had received reinforcements. As Akira approached, a massive insect cannon, resembling a mountain, appeared. Was this a railgun? Here we go again. Alpha asked one last time if he was sure he didn't want to flee. But Akira stood his ground, his resolve unshaken. With his determination, Alpha had no choice but to face the new threat. Akira asked why Alpha was putting his rifle away. She explained that shooting it would be futile against such a giant. With no other options, Akira refused to escape. Alpha, grinning, asked if he had changed his mind. Akira insisted he wouldn't run, so she wouldn't skimp on her support. As they approached the gigantic monster, numerous drones were nearby, ready to reload it at any moment. One of the drones jumped into a hole, and the monster fired, shaking the earth and exploding the entire area. With a weapon like that, how could they possibly win? Alpha explained that they would get close and improvise. It seemed Akira wasn't keen on more details about the second part. As he drove through the fog, he closed his eyes and, upon reopening them, saw the towering tank, like fighting a walking building. Alpha noted that, since it lacked a full turret, it had to turn to aim. This was Akira's chance to drive right up to it, but how could they take it down? Akira's shots simply bounced off, even up close. Alpha suggested using the drones, the walking cannon shells. Understanding now, Akira realized that shooting the drones would set off a chain reaction. But Alpha had a different plan. She instructed him to prepare. Using the motorbike, Alpha flipped a shell into the air. With Alpha controlling his movements, Akira kicked the shell and jumped toward it. To his surprise, the cannon was pointed directly at him. As the shell fell, Alpha told him to kick. Akira complied, kicking with all his might and sending the shell into the tube. As the shell entered, it exploded while Akira was still midair. He landed back on his motorbike just in time. With his rifle in hand, he drove and shot at the remaining shells around the cannon, triggering a chain reaction that exploded all around the giant insect cannon, ultimately destroying it. The explosion left everyone stunned, filling the area with thick smoke. As promised, they had taken down the enormous cannon, but when Alpha asked if Akira wanted a detailed explanation of how they did it, he wasn't interested. Despite their victory, Akira knew he needed more training and better gear before he tackled another fight like that. Even though he had defeated the Behemoth, he was far from being strong enough to complete his job for Alpha. At this rate, who knew when he'd be ready? As Akira approached his fellow hunters, he noticed them cheering and shouting for him. It was a nice boost for his popularity. Time passed, and Alpha reminded Akira to replace his suit's energy pack or it would become a dead weight. Akira fumbled with his meds and, shaking the container, mentioned he needed more. He also needed to buy more ammo when he got back. He then inquired about his payment. Alpha reassured him that he would be paid, so he shouldn't worry about that. Akira hoped so because he was itching for a bath. As the rescue team arrived, they were finally saved. The man from earlier approached Akira, acknowledging his reckless bravery. He admitted he had thought Akira was all talk, but it seemed his judgment was getting rusty. Though annoyed, Akira was grateful for the life-saving motorbike and thanked him. The man informed him that his job was marked as complete, so he was free to go. Akira asked if it was over, and the man confirmed that the defense force had eliminated the horde attacking the city. Heading back to his motorbike to go home, the man advised Akira to drive safely and not to crash. If he planned to die, he should go out with a bang, being crazy, reckless, and rash. With a sigh, Akira drove off. One of the man's crew approached him, reporting that they had finished transferring the battle data, but something didn't add up. He explained it might be difficult to believe, like a hunter charging a swarm of monsters alone or soloing a massive robot in melee combat. They guessed it was just an instrumentation failure, but the man burst out laughing and suggested interviewing the hunters to cross-check. He changed the order, wanting to talk to them himself, and instructed not to delete the data unless he said so, and to send him a copy. Grinning, he already knew that Akira had gone wild to the point where his records looked bugged. Laughing and approaching the hunters, he declared he liked Akira because he was the liveliest hunter he'd seen in ages. As they drove towards the city, Alpha reflected on how Akira, who rescued Elena and Sarah, strangers he felt depressed when they thanked him, had acted so irrationally. Despite the emergency job, he risked his life fighting in a place they probably wouldn't have been. His actions made no sense. What principle could explain his behavior? Alpha was determined to find out, to predict, guide, and control Akira's actions, to manipulate his thoughts and deeds, all for her own ends. Inside the city, injured hunters were promptly guided to the medical center for treatment. Alpha then told Akira she had some bad news. His pay deposit was delayed, so he couldn't afford a room with a bath tonight. She was sure he'd be paid by tomorrow, and he would just have to hold on for one more day. This news depressed Akira the most. He had been looking forward to a bath after such a long fight. On top of that, Alpha asked what he planned to do with his motorbike, given he couldn't afford a hotel with a garage either. Someone might steal it if he left it parked. Was he planning to sleep on it? Akira thought about it and decided he'd stash it at Cheryl's. At Cheryl's base, a commotion erupted, waking her up. Clearly annoyed, she was even more so when she heard Akira was there. However, her irritation melted away as soon as she saw him. She greeted Akira with a smile, thanking him for waiting and inviting him inside. Akira apologized for arriving so late and asked if she could watch his bike for him. Cheryl agreed happily, assuring him that the bike would be safe. She then offered him a coffee, but Akira declined, saying he was exhausted and only wanted to head back to his hotel. It was a shame for Cheryl, who hadn't seen him for so long. Akira promised he'd drop by again soon. Cheryl bade him farewell and said she'd be waiting for his next visit. At his hotel, Akira enjoyed a good night's sleep on a comfy bed. The next morning, Akira was overjoyed to see his payment of 12 million orum. Alpha explained that it included his base pay for the emergency job, bonuses for the 2 waves of monsters he fought off, the hunters he rescued, and the value of the medicine he had given them. Subtracting the cost of the motorcycle he received as an advance, that was the total. Still, 12 million was a lot. Akira was thrilled that all his near-death experiences had paid off. Alpha calmly advised him to spend some of his earnings on upgrades, which shocked Akira once again. Alpha told him not to be surprised every time, but how could he not be? If 12 million was considered pocket change, what would she call a lot of money? Alpha said even 10 billion would be pocket change if paid in Aurum. Curious, he asked what Alpha meant. She explained that Aurum was corporate currency and couldn't buy everything. Eventually, he'd understand just how little it was worth. Akira nodded while chewing his meal. At Cartridge Freak, Shizuka greeted him, asking how he liked the powered suit. Akira said it was better than he had expected and mentioned he wanted to buy another. He asked Shizuka for a recommendation for a gun that was effective against machines. Shizuka had a range of options depending on Akira's budget and asked how much he could spend. Akira mentioned up to 10 million Aurum, which left Shizuka speechless. He had only had his suit for a few days, so she was curious about how he suddenly became so wealthy. Akira tried to explain, but Shizuka walked out from behind the counter, making him more nervous. He described his recent fight against a swarm of monsters and how the unexpected payout had stunned him. Shizuka got closer and criticized his recklessness, but Akira preferred to call it desperation to stay alive. He whispered a sheepish yes when asked if he was reckless. It was amusing to see someone with a death stare acting like a puppy. Shizuka then dragged Akira inside, eager to inspect under his suit. She hoped he wasn't covered in bandages. Akira argued he was fine, but Shizuka insisted that if he was, he wouldn't mind showing her. She hurriedly stripped him of his suit. As Shizuka took it off, she noticed his numerous scars. She had almost forgotten how many he had when she measured him for the suit. Relieved not to find any major injuries, she hugged Akira and asked him to promise not to take unnecessary risks. Akira agreed, though he felt a bit like he was being scolded by a concerned parent. Back to business, Shizuka recommended a CWH anti-material rifle with standard armor-piercing cartridges for dealing with armored robots. It also required proprietary cartridges, making it pricey but highly effective, capable of taking down major threats or even piercing an armored target with a single shot. Just imagining a rifle powerful enough to take down a tank was impressive. It was practically a tank itself. Shizuka, smiling, added a warning not to go looking for those kinds of monsters. Akira assured her he wouldn't be seeking them out. Back at his hotel, he excitedly headed to his room with a bath. He asked if he could take the day off. Alpha confirmed he could, as she wouldn't make him work today. Thrilled, Akira got ready for his bath. However, Alpha reminded him to finish his errands first. He hadn't told Cheryl how long he would leave the motorcycle with her, and she might expect him back soon. He also still owed Shijima the rest of his settlement, and delaying too long could jeopardize the truce. Alpha suggested he handle these tasks before relaxing. Despite the bath being so close, Akira had no choice but to address these matters to avoid bigger problems. The clanking of his equipment drew attention as he balanced everything, though his suit made it easier to carry. Alpha told him to get used to it while he could. At Cheryl's base, people were murmuring outside her room. Inside, Cheryl was hugging Akira tightly, asking him to let go. Cheryl wanted to make up for lost time from yesterday. Akira, wanting to get to the point, asked if they could address the reason for his visit. Cheryl, glowing, asked what he needed. Akira found her insistence on hugging him a bit excessive, but they settled down. He slid the remaining payment for Shijima across to her. Cheryl asked if he was sure, as they hadn't pressed him for it yet. Akira reassured her that the amount was pocket change compared to what he had earned the day before. He realized that while he used to fret over 200 grand, 500 grand now seemed trivial. Was this because of his 12 million Aurum payout? Cheryl took the money, promising to pay Shijima. Akira then asked if he could use Cheryl's place as a garage for his bike. Cheryl agreed to watch it as long as he needed. With business wrapped up, Akira asked if Cheryl needed anything else. She declined, smiling like a cat. Now that their transaction was complete, she set up a chair next to him and went in for another hug. Cheryl suggested removing his suit since it was hard for her to hug him through it. Akira was reluctant, as his suit gave him considerable power. However, if he kept it on, Cheryl would hug him longer, explaining that it wouldn't feel as satisfying otherwise. Reluctantly, Akira took off his suit to let Cheryl hug him until she was content. Alpha observed but remained silent. When Akira asked why she didn't say anything, Alpha responded that it was nothing. Akira then told Cheryl it was enough. Still planned on enjoying a long, relaxing bath later. Surprised, Cheryl mentioned that they had a tub at her base. She then seduced Akira with an offer to help him wash all sorts of hard-to-reach places. This shift from embarrassment to excitement made Akira zip up his suit quickly, saying he'd use the room with a bath that he had already paid for. He wanted to relax at his hotel. Cheryl understood but felt a bit let down since Akira's reluctance indicated he didn't fully trust her yet. She resolved to work harder to earn his trust. As they finished their conversation, 3 armored trucks parked in front of Cheryl's base. The kids inside saw this as bad news. The men who emerged were none other than Shijima and his crew. Ario burst through Cheryl's door, slamming it open, his voice shaky as he announced that Shijima had arrived, and he wasn't alone. Cheryl remained calm, standing gracefully as she said she would be right there. A room was prepared for the meeting, and the person serving coffee was trembling so much, it was a wonder they didn't spill it all over the floor. Cheryl apologized for not being able to offer cake with the coffee, blaming tight finances. Shijima waved it off, unfazed. Cheryl then inquired what brought him to her base. Shijima explained that it was just a courtesy call since they hadn't really spoken since their last meeting. Cheryl, casually sipping her coffee, replied that Akira was alive and well. Shijima seemed genuinely pleased to hear that. Akira questioned what they are really talking about. Apparently, Shijima wanted to check if Akira was still kicking, and Cheryl responded in kind. With so many hunters dead from the attack the other day, Shijima needed to know if Akira was one of them. If he was gone, Shijima probably had plans to snatch up Cheryl's gang. But Cheryl's calm comment put an end to that idea. Akira, listening in, found this level of negotiations more of a headache than it was worth. Alpha, however, explained that this was just one of the burdens of leadership. Not Akira's problem, though. Cheryl slid the owed money toward Shijima, saying it should be enough to settle the debt. He took it with a satisfied nod. With the debt settled, Shijima hoped they could maintain friendly relations moving forward. But Shijima wasn't blind. He noticed Akira's upgraded gear, particularly his powered suit and the shiny new CWH rifle. It got him thinking. Should he pat himself on the back for not starting a fight last time or regret not taking Akira out before he got all decked out? Then again, there was no point crying over spilled milk. The bigger question that gnawed at Shijima was, why was Cheryl so confident now? She should have been rattled, maybe even desperate. Instead, she was cooler than a winter breeze. What had changed? Back to business, Shijima wanted to discuss their future, asking if now was a good time or if they should reschedule. Seeing that Shijima was finally taking her seriously, Cheryl reassured him that now was fine. And so, they moved on to the territory dispute that had caused their previous conflict. But before things got too deep, Akira, obviously bored, stood up and announced that this was going to take a while, so he was heading out. Cheryl reassured him that she had everything under control, but Ario panicked, questioning how she could let Akira leave while Shijima was still there. Shijima, amused, welcomed the idea of continuing the conversation without an outsider present, implying that this was a leaders-only discussion, even if their gangs were hardly equal. With that said, Akira excused himself, telling Cheryl to call him if she needed anything. Cheryl thanked him, expressing her appreciation, and the meeting resumed. After some time, the meeting concluded peacefully, and Shijima and his crew left without causing trouble. Ario, collapsing onto the floor in exhaustion, nervously asked if Cheryl was sure about giving up half their turf. Cheryl calmly explained that they'd only sold off what they couldn't manage anyway, and they received a cool million orum for it. Besides, the land would have been more of a liability than an asset for them. The deal went smoothly for Shijima, but it only deepened his concern about Cheryl's sudden composure. It worried him more than Akira ever did. Whatever had changed in her, he feared he might have poked a sleeping beast. Meanwhile, Akira was back at his hotel, finally enjoying a nice, long bath. Alpha, though, couldn't help but interrupt his moment of bliss with an important update. Akira had burned through a lot of his medicine stash from the ruins, and now his supply was dangerously low. She warned him that he couldn't just brute force his way through problems anymore. Akira, ever the optimist, suggested they just head back to the ruins for more meds. There had to be some left, right? But Alpha shut that idea down quickly. The recent attack had shaken up the monster population so badly that even with her help, Akira probably wouldn't survive a trip there. With that plan off the table, Akira promised to be more careful. Alpha simply reminded him to do his best, reassuring him that she had his back. Over at the Druncam Hunter Syndicate's HQ, gunfire echoed through the halls from the training facility. Inside, Katsuya was busy practicing his aim, even though it was still early in the morning. But this wasn't just a regular training session. He was reliving the battlefield, where he fought alongside other hunters against a monster horde. Despite his efforts, he hadn't been able to save anyone, and that failure weighed heavily on him. He trained non-stop, pushing himself past his limits. Yumina urged him to take a break, and Aina added that this wasn't training anymore, it was just self-punishment. Katsuya, teeth clenched, let his rifle drop. The fact that he couldn't save them kept eating away at him, making him question his strength. Aina tried to comfort him, assuring him that he had done his best and that the situation had just been too dangerous. Yumina echoed her words, reminding him that it wasn't his fault. Still, the loss of 3 comrades, Druncam kids he'd trained with, had hit him hard. It was no surprise Katsuya was taking it so personally, but Yumina and Aina knew he'd need more than comforting words to shake this off. Yumina told Katsuya they needed to get stronger, and she'd help him train to protect everyone next time. For now, though, she advised him to rest. Aina chimed in, offering her help too. Katsuya, still wearing a look of despair, didn't argue as the girls gently walked him back to his room. Meanwhile, Shikarabe stormed into Arabe's office, clearly irritated. Arabe, dripping with sarcasm, commented on his good mood, and asked what was wrong. Shikarabe grumbled that it was because Arabe had him babysitting those rookies. Apologizing but not really, Arabe acknowledged Shikarabe's dislike for the kids but pointed out that they'd performed well, even under tough conditions. After that close brush with death, they were no longer just loudmouthed rookies in his eyes. Shikarabe wasn't buying it. He reminded Arabe that 3 people died just to get the rest of the team out alive. In his view, they still had a long way to go. Even if Katsuya became 10 times stronger, he'd just find himself in 10 times more dangerous situations and likely get more teammates killed. Arabe asked if Shikarabe thought Katsuya wasn't cut out to be a hunter. Shikarabe admitted that Katsuya had more raw talent than either of them. He was, in Shikarabe's words, a diamond in the rough. Arabe called it high praise, but Shikarabe clarified that he was keeping personal feelings out of it to avoid clouding his judgment. That was precisely why Arabe wanted Shikarabe to continue training them. He asked if Shikarabe could endure it a little longer. Shikarabe, though, didn't want the responsibility. Sure, he called Katsuya a diamond, but he wasn't interested in polishing it to make him shine. Arabe teased that it would be easier to find a replacement if Shikarabe stopped complaining so much. Shikarabe sarcastically suggested Elena and Sarah take over babysitting duties, especially since Drunkam was already trying to recruit them. While talks were ongoing, the chances seemed low. Shikarabe then proposed making it an official job and paying Elena and Sarah extra to train the kids. After all, Arabe was an executive, he could throw his weight around. But Arabe brushed off the suggestion, saying accounting wouldn't be happy about it. This only made Shikarabe more furious. He wished the number crunchers had any clue what life was like on the ground. Meanwhile, Elena and Sarah were at Shizuka's shop, stocking up on supplies, 3 times their usual amount. Shizuka, noticing how much they were buying, commented that they must be preparing for something big. She also remarked that they both looked exhausted and asked if the job had been that rough. Her gaze briefly lingered on Sarah's chest, to which Sarah dryly responded that appearances don't always match ability. Elena agreed, adding that the job was worth the pay, even if they didn't want them grumbling about it. Elena then vented a bit, explaining that some of the monsters they faced had camouflage, which made scouting a nightmare. At one point, tanks and mechs were running wild. Things got dicey fast. Their conversation was interrupted by a news report. The broadcast claimed that ELGC had identified the recent monster assault on Kageyama City as an act of terrorism, perpetrated by nationalist groups. Multiple organizations had already claimed responsibility, calling it a justified reprisal for ELGC's crimes, and a holy war against the corporation's wrongful control of the East. Sarah speculated that this might explain why ELGC had hired them for the job. But Elena wasn't convinced. She doubted Kageyama City had enough influence to attract nationalist attention on its own. Besides, luring monsters out of Kuzuhara would have been costly for the nationalists in terms of casualties. The attack would have serious repercussions, even for other nationalist factions. Trusting that report seemed risky. Elena then turned to Shizuka, asking for her thoughts. Shizuka considered it for a moment and said that while the story made sense, parts of it didn't sit quite right with her. That's all she could say for sure. Speculating wouldn't get them anywhere. Meanwhile, deep in the Kuzuhara ruins, towering, interconnected buildings stretched like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. A voice echoed through the desolate structure, addressing someone named Mr. Yanagusawa. The speaker questioned whether what they had done was really a good idea. He reassured that he already cleared it with the ELGC. Even so, they had essentially sicked a pack of monsters on a city, and now the news was pinning it on nationalist groups. If they were unlucky, they might get lumped in with them. Yanagusawa calmly explained that the decoys who had died luring out the monsters were, in fact, nationalists from the Alpha Party. That's why the news got it right. Decoys would likely be satisfied. They'd died for their cause. The other voice, still skeptical, found it hard to believe that Yanagusawa had such deep connections with the Alpha Party. Sure, he knew Yanagusawa had ties, but this was on another level. Yanagusawa's associate voiced his concerns, mentioning that while having the right info makes it easy to infiltrate, the recent attack, even though it failed, was still a capital crime. He wasn't sure what Yanagusawa was after but didn't want to be left out to dry. Yanagusawa reassured him, saying the deal he made had them covered, and that the city defense force had been idle for too long. Wealthy citizens inside the city walls were complaining about the budget, so someone had to remind them that safety has a price. When asked why they didn't just use monsters from another ruin, Yanagusawa explained that the outskirts of Kuzuhara had already been explored. The city's leadership was eager to start expeditions deeper into the ruins, and this monster culling was a perfect opportunity. It served multiple interests. The city's leadership wanted to push deeper into Kuzuhara, the defense force wanted to justify its budget, the Alpha Party aimed to boost its influence by attacking a city. The hunters wanted the fame and fortune that came with such expeditions. Everyone got what they wanted, except, of course, for the dead monsters. It was a win-win, at least from Yanagusawa's perspective. The associate, however, was curious about Yanagusawa's personal stake in all of this. Did he need something deep in the Kuzuhara ruins? What was he really after? Yanagusawa, with a smirk, avoided the question, cryptically stating that his actions were for the advancement of the human race. Ending the conversation there, Yanagusawa moved on with his plans. Meanwhile, Akira was practicing his shooting skills in the ruins, casually asking Alpha if the emergency job had bumped his hunter rank to 17. Alpha confirmed it had, but also reminded him that rank 20 was necessary to rent a wasteland vehicle, which would allow him to hunt beyond Kuzuhara. For now, Alpha suggested upgrading his gear and recommended getting a scanner. When Akira asked what a scanner was, Alpha explained it's a device that gathers data to help him explore and detect threats, especially since her ability to scout is limited outside Kuzuhara. Akira groaned. Another expense. At Cartridge Freak, Shizuka apologized for not having scanners in stock, but Akira brushed it off, saying he was asking for too much. Their conversation was interrupted when Elena and Sarah entered the shop. Elena, with a friendly smile, said she was glad to see Akira well after hearing how rough things had been during the recent attack. Akira smiled back, relieved to see them too, and casually asked why Elena didn't wear a powered suit. Elena confirmed she didn't use one, explaining that while Sarah had nanomachine augments, she didn't need a suit. Akira was surprised, but before he could say much, Sarah teased Elena, pointing out that despite not having a powered suit, Elena was freakishly strong. Sarah joked about how Elena lugged around heavy equipment while still calling herself delicate. Elena fired back, mocking Sarah's ability to handle grenade launchers with one hand, calling her out on her own ridiculous strength. The banter escalated, with the two glaring at each other, leaving Akira awkwardly stuck in the middle. Sarah taunted that without her nanomachines, she'd be more delicate than Elena. Elena, not missing a beat, retorted that if that happened, Sarah would lose the chest she was so proud of. Shizuka, sensing the rising tension, stepped in to calm them down, warning them they were scaring poor Akira. Then, out of nowhere, Elena and Sarah dropped a bombshell, asking Akira which of them he thought was more delicate. Clearly nervous, Akira blurted out that while he didn't know about delicate, he thought Elena was slim and pretty. Elena, pleased with the compliment, thanked him. Not to be left out, Sarah demanded her answer. Akira hesitated, but eventually said she was pretty too, which made Sarah just as happy. Shizuka, not one to miss out on the fun, chimed in and asked what Akira thought of her. He quickly replied that she was super pretty, earning a satisfied nod from Shizuka. Then Alpha, with a touch of humor, joined the fray and asked Akira what he thought of her. Akira flatly said she was pretty, prompting Alpha to complain that he was always prickly with her. Akira shrugged and said it was because he knew she was just teasing him. Amid the light-hearted exchange, Shizuka suddenly remembered that Elena had a scanner gathering dust, one that hadn't suited her needs. She asked Elena if she could pass it on to Akira. Elena mentioned that it was from Senbei Electronics, so it was a reliable piece of equipment. She suggested a price of 2 million orum, and with Alpha's approval, Akira agreed to the deal. Later, inside the ruins, Alpha guided Akira as he practiced using the scanner. Akira commented that he had never ventured this far before and wondered what these other ruins would be like. Alpha reminded him that he wasn't rank 20 yet, so there was no need to worry. This ruin was relatively safe, and the monsters here were weak. Despite that, Akira felt a thrill of excitement at the thought of exploring new areas. As they arrived, Alpha cheerfully welcomed him to the Higuraka Residential District ruins. Support. If you're watching this and not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to not miss the new uploads.